Hey guys! We have 3 more depositions to try to get through for the Afroman trial. The first 2 are shorter than the others that we've looked at. Shawn Grooms is going to be first up, then we have Lisa Phillips, and then we have Brian Newland. His is a bit longer. You guys could probably guess why. They're narrowing it down that he's the one that was in control of the scene and was really the supervisor on scene for the raid. He was also the one counting or miscounting or who knows what with the money. So it makes sense that his deposition is going to be a little bit longer. So those are the 3 that we have left on the docket for today's stream. I think we can get through them. We'll see if we can do it. Quick housekeeping note. I already mentioned this week, today, Tuesday, at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be doing an Afroman trial panel with Judy from AA Legal Focus and the Loophole Lawyer. So that's going to be a great time. I first came across their channel a long time ago with Charlie Adelson. And even though I didn't follow too much with like all of the buzz about the Adelson trial this year, that's really where I first saw them and their content, their collaborations on that. Really, really awesome stuff. So excited to talk about Afroman with them. Second housekeeping, you guys might remember a wrongful house raid that took place in Atlanta, Georgia. It was actually an FBI raid. They barge into this house, they're assaulting one of the individuals that lives there, and all of a sudden he says his address and they realize they have the wrong house. This case went all the way up to SCOTUS. SCOTUS was asked to consider 2 different questions, and SCOTUS ultimately and unanimously said, you know what, we actually want to remand this back down to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals because we think they'll be able to weigh these questions more decisively and weigh in on things that we were not asked to consider. So remember, SCOTUS really only considers questions of law and interpretation as they're asked. They don't really just look at a whole case and say, here's what we think was wrong with this particular case, or you guys had the facts wrong, we're going to reevaluate them. So this is remanded back down to the 11th Circuit. This is going to be argued tomorrow. So tomorrow, I think probably, if you're interested in seeing how this wrongful raid case is argued, whenever the oral arguments are done and uploaded where we can rewind and pause, we'll get together and we'll talk about wrongful raids in the federal context. So there's supposed to be a statute, the Federal Tort Claims Act, where individuals can sue for compensation when there's a wrongful raid like this one. But there's all this stuff that just seems to stand in the way, and that's what the Martin family here is fighting. So you might have heard about that case. If you didn't, we'll do a deeper summary before we get into the oral arguments, maybe tomorrow. And just thought that might be something you guys are interested in. Kind of overlaps with what we're talking about with Afroman here. So without further ado, let's get to the deposition of Shawn Grooms. Shawn Grooms is up here in the corner if you forget who he is. This is the witness whose wife took the stand during the defense's case in chief and was like, hey, this Afroman thing was not the reason we got a divorce. So, all right, so we've got, and let me move myself, get you guys on the screen hanging out with me. So we've got all the beginning stuff. They go on the record. They say, hey, if we ask you a question, just answer it before we take a break. And then they get to the meat and potatoes. So David Osborne, attorney for Afroman, says, okay, so Shawn, how are you employed? With the Adams County Sheriff's Office. How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office? Back and forth from West Union to the Sheriff's Office, about 19 years. So when did you come out of the academy? In 2002. So you came out of the academy in 2002? Yes. Which academy did you attend? The one at Southern State in Hillsborough. And I have to ask this for clarification. In 2002, Southern State had 2 campuses, Fincastle and Hillsborough. Did you go to the main campus or the Fincastle one? It was the main campus in Hillsborough, Ohio. Okay, so where did you get your first job out of the academy? With the West Union Police Department. How long did you stay at the West Union PD? Approximately 7 years, 8 years. And so after about 7 or 8 years, you went to the Sheriff's Department? Correct. Now, you said back and forth between West Union and the Sheriff's Department, approximately 19 years. So how long did you stay with the Sheriff's Department the first time? It was probably 4.5 years. And then you went back to West Union? Yes. And how long were you with them the second time? Roughly 7, maybe 6, 7. And then you went back to the sheriff's office? Yes, in 2020. Are you still employed with the sheriff's office? Yes. Full-time or part-time? Full-time. So you would have been employed full-time by the sheriff's department in 2022? Correct. What were your job duties at that time in 2022? I was a road patrol. What's the duties of a road patrol? Answering complaints, taking care of domestics, making arrests. And this may sound like a stupid question, but are you a duly licensed peace officer in the state of Ohio? Correct. Up to date on your CPTs? That's their ongoing training? Yes. Have you ever had any training besides CPTs in the academy? Yes. What can you tell me about that? Canine officer for approximately 8 years. About when to when? 2014, I believe. To about 2022? Yeah, I'm adding 8 to 2014. No, it would have been, I can't remember when, but you wouldn't have been a canine officer during 2022? No. So sometime before that? Yes. Okay, I want to ask a question because it keeps confusing me. So what is the different levels in organization at the Adams County Sheriff's Office? Everybody keeps talking about sergeants being supervisors. What's the hierarchy there? Well, just a sergeant, and then you have your just road patrol officers and the sheriff. So in the hierarchy, it would be road patrol, sergeants, and then the sheriff? Yes. Okay, I don't mean to say this derogatory or anything, but so you're just the lowest man on the totem pole? Correct. Okay, that's what I was getting at. Okay, do you ever do any work with confidential informants? Some. What kind of work have you done with them in the past? I've done some drug buys. For those of us like myself who's not really sure what that is, what is a drug buy? It's where you have an informant go and you just have him go and buy off someone that they can get drugs from. So is that like we see in the movies where they've got that wire on them and the tape recorder and they tape the recorder to them and everything? Correct. How does one become a confidential informant? Sometimes it's got to run through a prosecutor. It's got to be okayed by probation or the judge if they are on probation. And I take it that's so they don't get violated on probation for doing the work? Correct. Okay, and I take it you run it by the prosecutor to make sure that if there's any dealing in relation to criminal charges, they've okayed it. Yes. So normal process. They have some criminal stuff going on. Probably got to speak to the prosecutor's office before you just use their questions to run and sign an affidavit and get a judge to sign off on this search warrant. So question, what if the person has no criminal charges filed against them and no probation? What would be the process in that case? Well, they are given a piece of paper showing that what they're allowed to do and what they can't do. They have to be with an officer at all times if they're working for an officer. Okay, so does each officer then maintain their own CIs? Sometimes, yes. Can you clarify what you mean by sometimes? Well, there's maybe 2 officers using the same CI. Okay. And it may just be that one officer using. Well, is there a written policy at the sheriff's office in relation to the use of confidential informants? That is, I'm not aware. How are you trained in the use of confidential informants? I went to almost a 2-week class in Apota. Do you remember when that was? It was back when I was at West Union. Well, you were at West Union twice, so you've got to clarify that. It would have been the second time I was back at West Union. Okay, and I think that was sometime prior to 2020? Correct. Is there a written policy at the Adams County Sheriff's Office on how to complete and do a return on the search warrant? That I can't answer. I've never seen it. Can you repeat that, please? I've never seen one. Did you ever receive training on search warrants? Through the academy. So then they bring out the search warrant affidavit and the signed search warrant. I would like you to take a look at what's been marked as Plaintiffs Exhibit 8. Have you ever seen that search warrant before today? No, I have not. So I guess there would be nothing you could tell me about the search warrant or the process it went through to be obtained? No. Did you have any interaction with the confidential informant that was the basis of the search warrant? No. So were you on duty on August 21st of 2022? I would have been on duty, but they'd called me in probably 2 hours early. Oh, they called you in early. Huh. About what time were you called in? It would have been approximately 4. Okay, so you were set to go on at 6 at night? Yes. Okay, so they just called you and said, hey, do you mind coming in early? Correct. Okay, so did they tell you on the phone why they were calling you in early? Something to do with the search warrant, and that was it. Because remember, we had some testimony at trial where, oh, we didn't know we were going to be doing this. It wasn't really planned like that. We weren't just sitting around waiting to go raid Afroman's house. He says, do you remember who called you? I believe it was Sergeant Estep. Okay, so you arrive at the sheriff's office. What happens next? I can't recall. Was there any strategy planning when you got there or anything? Yeah, probably a half an hour after I got there. Tell me about that, the strategy meeting. Just going over who was going to be where and where we was meeting. And so when you say who was going to be where, you're talking about who was going to guard the perimeter, who was going to breach the door. Exactly. What was your position in this plan? If I can recall, I was on the outside on the back corner toward the driveway. Towards the driveway with the gate? Yes. Okay. Would you have had a view of the back door of the residence? I had a view all of the way down through the back side of the house. So you're making sure no one would come out the back and abscond? Correct. Do you remember what you were armed with? An AR. Pardon me? AR. An AR-15 assault rifle? Correct. Was that the standard issue out of the cruiser? Yes. Did you observe the breach of the house? No. Did you take part in the breach of the house? No. Did you ever participate in the search of the house? Yes. Okay, so after they breach, how did you become part of the search? Well, they had asked for extras to come in. And how did they ask for that? Did someone just poke their head out and say, hey, we need help, or they go over the radio? I think it was over the radio. Okay. I'm not 100%, but you were called in because they needed extra help? Correct. And do you recall who called you in? No, I don't. Okay, when you went outside, do you recall what you did as part of the search? I started through I believe it was the kitchen area, and I checked a few rooms, side rooms. Did you search the basement? I did not. Do you ever remember seeing the basement? I do not. Did you ever see any cages? I didn't. Did you participate in the search of the suits? I can't recall. Do you ever recall if you went upstairs? I did. Okay, were you wearing a body cam during the time? I was. Would the body cam contain all of the actions you took that day? Yes. Do you recall finding any evidence or cataloging any evidence while you were there? No. In your understanding, what were they searching for? Or what were you searching for when you went into the residence? What they had told me oh, he says what they had told me they were going to be searching for. So that's what he was searching for. Which was, it was a person being held there against their will and narcotics. Did you have any interaction with the security system in this residence? No. Any interaction with the CDs? I may have with the CDs, I'm not 100%. Okay, but that would be on your body cam? Yes, it should be. Did you have any interaction with why they chose the side door to breach? I do not. Have you had any interaction with this case other than the search warrant execution? I don't understand. Was your sole involvement in the matter on August 21st, 2022, just to help in the execution of the search warrant? Yes. After the property was searched, what did you do next? Well, after the house was searched, or after everything was searched? That's a good question, actually. So after the house was searched, what did you help search next? A few buildings. Was anything found in those buildings? Not that I can recall. So I take it goes without saying, well, strike that. No people was found hiding in the buildings? No. No cages? No. After the buildings were searched, what happened next? I think I went back on regular patrol for the night. Completed your shift? Uh-huh. And that was the limit of your involvement in everything? And then he shakes his head affirmatively. Were you involved in that in any way I haven't asked already? Pardon me? Were you involved in this search warrant in any other way other than just helping with the execution? Just the execution. Okay. When was the first time you became aware of the posts in reference to this? Probably a few weeks after. How did you become aware? I was told about it. Who told you? I can't recall exactly who it was. It was being talked about at the sheriff's office that there was a post about me as being the hunchback of Norman Dane. And that's how he said it. He said the Hunchback of Norman Dane. He did that at trial, too, I think. He said, say that again, please. Being the Hunchback of Norman Dane. Hunchback Norman Dane? However you say it. And then Mr. Klingler jumps in. Notre Dame, maybe? The Hunchback of Notre Dame? The witness. Yeah, however you say it. So the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like Quasimodo? Whoever he is. I use Quasimodo. In the book by Victor Hugo about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, his name was Quasimodo. Okay. A small piece of trivia. Things you pick up, okay? Did you ever see the Post calling you the Hunchback of Notre Dame? Yes. Okay. When did you see that post? Probably a few days after I was told. Now, is that the only post that refers to you? As far as I know, I never got on and looked for any more because it is what it is. It's really just this one post. That's why he's part of this lawsuit. Now you're part of this lawsuit. You're asking for damages due to your reputation. Can you tell me how being called the Hunchback of, we're going to say Norman Dame, has affected your reputation? I get made fun of a lot when I go on to a call and I get, like everybody else has said, I get accused of, are you going to take my money? Or are you going to take this or that? And it gets kind of old. I'm not a thief. Do you have an explanation as to why there was a difference in the amount of money reported on the search of the return of the search warrant than what was returned from evidence? I do not. Is that normal for that to happen? No. Well, according to the report, it happens 11% of the time. 7 out of 66. Were you ever investigated as part of an internal investigation into that? No. So other than just what happens when you're on a call about people accusing you of things, how else has your reputation, representation been harmed? Just look at you different. Can you give me an example of that? Like you're a thief or something. Can you give me a specific example where this happened? Pardon me? Can you give me a specific example where that happened? Where what happened? Why are we here? Why is this guy suing? So is there an example that comes to your mind where you responded to a call and that person treated you different? Can you give me a specific example of that? I can't give you a specific. It's just different calls you go to and just people makes you feel different and look at you different. And were you ever threatened? Actually, I was. I had 3 personal phone calls to my personal cell. Tell me about those calls. That I should be shot or beat up for doing what I done to Mr. Foreman. Okay, did you log the numbers that called? I did not because they were unknown. So they came up on your calling ID as unknown? Correct. And you answered them? Affirmative headshake. Okay. Did you turn that information over to the prosecutor's office? I mentioned it to the sheriff. Do you know what he did? I don't. Was anybody arrested in reference to those 3 calls? Not to my knowledge. Did they pull any wire searches or anything? As far as I know, no. Is threatening a police officer a crime? It usually is. This may sound stupid, Shawn, but if threatening a police officer is a crime, isn't it odd that the prosecutor didn't take any steps? I can't answer that. In your personal opinion, do you think it's odd? Kind of. You have also asked in your complaint for emotional damages. Could you please explain what emotional damages are? Strike that. Emotional distress. He keeps calling it emotional damages. Emotional distress, sorry. I have to wonder if he's doing it on purpose. Just having to wonder about everything, what people think of you and how they look at you, and it kind of played a part of my family life. Explain that to me. Well, I had recently got divorced. Did she divorce you solely because of this? Not solely, but what did she say exactly that this played into the divorce? She didn't want to. She was tired of hearing about it. People asking her, is your husband a thief? And how could he do something like this? Or, Shawn, I apologize for not knowing the answer to this. What was your ex-wife's name? It was Rhonda. Did she go back to her maiden name? No. So it's still Rhonda Grooms? Uh-huh. Did it affect your personal life in any other way? Not really. And you've also asked for humiliation, damages in relation to humiliation. Tell me about humiliation. How have you experienced humiliation? Pretty much the same as the others, and being made fun of. And you're talking about when people come to, when you go to calls and people are saying, are you going to do us like Afroman? You're a thief, and stuff like that. Well, that and being called the hunchback. So when you say being called the hunchback, is people yelling that at you, or are you just referring to the post? Just referring to the post and people saying, calling me that. Can you give me an example of people calling you that? Yeah, you walk into a store and someone sees you. Look, there's Hunchback from Afromans. This is okay. Can you give me a specific instance of a store date and time? I can't give you a date and time, but I can give you a Walmart parts store. I go into the parts store every now and then, and people wants to bring it up. Have you ever been threatened on the force before? Has a person ever threatened you while you have been a police officer? Yeah, I'm sure they have. Have you ever been called derogatory names as an officer? Yeah. Can you give me an example of some of those names? Stupid, bitch, unflattering things like that? Correct. It's so funny that, all of these witnesses have, a unique set of things that people call them. Like, this guy's apparently stupid and a B. The other guy's dipshit. They all have, slightly nuanced derogatory terms that they get called. Unflattering things like that? Correct. Do you recall how many people took place in the search of the residence on August 21st, 2022? I can't recall. Was there more than 6? I would say yes. Is there anybody who took place in that who is not a party to this lawsuit? I can't recall. This may sound stupid, but is there a document that exists that, if we were able to get a copy of, that would help you recall? Probably so. And what document would that be? It would be a CAD sheet. And that's kept by the dispatch? Uh-huh. So the CAD would tell us who was all there? Uh-huh. Do you know of any ongoing investigations or anything that would keep that CAD from being released? No, I don't. So in your lawsuit, are you claiming damages only for yourself or for you and your ex-wife? Myself. And I take it I'm correct in saying you're suing in your individual capacity? Correct. Sitting here today, your complaint asks for damages in excess of $25,000 for humiliation. How did you arrive at that number? You'd have to ask my attorney. Okay, as you sit here today, do you know a dollar figure put on your reputation damages? I can't answer that. Can't or won't? Won't. Okay. If I was to figure up your reputational damages, how would I go about doing that? I have no clue. Okay, you've also claimed damages and emotional distress in excess of $25,000. Do you know how you arrived at that number? You have to ask my attorney. Okay, as you're sitting here today, do you have knowledge of a number and how that number was obtained in relation to emotional damages? He did it again. You'd have to ask my attorney that too. So in your personal knowledge, you don't know? Well, I don't know. In your complaint, you have asked for damages in excess of $25,000 in relation to humiliation. Do you know how you came up with that number? I don't know. What kind of resolution would you like to see for this case? I can't really answer that. For myself? Yes. Or for everybody? No, just for yourself. I would like to see it be solved. Pardon me? To be solved, settling fairly. So you would want to see the lawsuit settled fairly. Correct. And an apology. Listen, this has been the most milquetoast deposition we've read here. This guy's here just because you got compared to the hunchback. And I don't even know how he can be seriously offended by that if he doesn't really even know the story of Quasimodo. But in any case, that's why he's here. That's why he's here. And because people are saying you're the hunchback from Afromans when he goes out on calls. And now he's saying he wants a settlement and an apology. You guys never apologized to Afroman. So Osborne says, an apology. And when you say settled fairly, what does that mean exactly? Just that I can't answer. Well, fair is a relative term, so I'm just asking in your mind what's fair. Well, I guess I reckon settle up. Okay. Prior to today, have you reviewed any documents to prepare you for your deposition? No. Have you reviewed your body cam since that incident? No. Do you have a copy of your body cam? Do I have a copy? Uh-huh. Just what's on downloaded onto the computer. Whose computer? The sheriff's office. Okay. Have you ever seen any doctors in relation to emotional distress? No. Counselors, therapists? No. Who all do you expect to call as witnesses? as a witness besides the other officers in this case at trial? No one. Would that also include expert witnesses? Yes. Osborne takes a moment. And then, Shawn, I have no further questions for you at this time. I think your attorney is going to ask you to waive or read. And then Klingler, this is the first time, I think. I've got just a handful of questions for Shawn myself here. So this is now direct by Klingler or Bob. So, Shawn, has this whole incident made it harder to do your job in any way? Somewhat, yeah. If I understood you earlier, you've been called a thief on different occasions? Yes. Have you ever been called a racist as a result of this? A few times. Are you a thief? No, I'm not. Are you a racist? No, I'm not. Do you think some of the fallout from all of this has had anything to do with your divorce? He says, I think maybe a little bit of it. And then Klingler's like, okay, that's all I've got. Nobody else has any... Oh, we have a follow-up. So we get a little recross in this one. The short, boring deposition has some back and forth for the first time that we've seen. So Osborne says, you said this might have something to do with your divorce. Would the correct person to ask about that be your ex-wife? You could try asking her. She's not very happy right now, so... Why is she not very happy? Because it didn't all go her way. You mean in the divorce? Uh-huh. Okay, no further questions. And then they read and sign the waiver. So, there's that. There's Shawn Grooms. There's Shawn Grooms. Next up, we're going to have Mona Lisa Lickham Lowe. I did it all backwards. You guys know. You guys know who I'm talking about. So, yeah. The World's End says Quasimodo. I thought his face rang a bell. Yep, we found out at trial that his wife filed for a restraining order against him and says that this was not the reason. When we see the $25K, that's just the jurisdictional amount. So, you know, versus going to, like, let's say a small claims court. If it goes above a certain threshold, you've got to go to a different, like here, they're going to the common pleas court. So, it's just, that's why it'll say in excess of. And it could be, like, limitless after that, I guess. So, yeah. Chicken says, I want to change my handle to Norman Dane so bad. Hey, Judy. Yeah, it's just hurt feelings. Like, especially this guy. Like, this is one social post because you got compared to the Hunchback. This isn't even, like, close to... he's doing it incessantly. It feels like harassment at this point. He won't leave me alone. Every day there's a new video about me, which I still think there's parody, artistic expression boundaries for that, right? They like it all fits within the context of the situation, the raid, and Afroman being an artist and trying to get back the money for his gates. But even if this is like private citizen dispute battle, like, how did this even go forward, this claim for this guy? In the light most favorable to Shawn Grooms, how did his claims proceed? I don't understand. Luke says dumber than a stump. Don't tell him that. He's going to get his feelings hurt. Oh my goodness. The World's End, thanks for being a member for 18 months. Says thanks for doing these, Kat. Really interesting. This one was just so like this deposition explains why somebody would divorce you. Like, and that's not to say it has anything to do with Afroman. It's your worldview, your outlook, your approach to things. The way you react to normal things that happen in life. Somebody's joshing around and saying you look like the Hunchback. And you sue for it. Like, just crazy. Good morning to Ron Wade, who's going out on a bicycle. That sounds good. I mean, I don't know what the weather's like near you, but it's nice here in Florida today. And the World's End's checking in from Scotland. That's super cool. Jason's asking, is Afroman's lawyer on X? I don't know. I do not know. I do not know. So, Martina Nems is the most important witness. I think Rhonda Grooms, the wife. Yeah, best friend with the hot take says, I think police should pay for damages, valid raid or not. Yeah, and sometimes, you know, the raids, you know, they're looking for somebody, but the house that they're damaging isn't even, like, the house belonging to the suspect. So it would undoubtedly be a bystander's damages. So, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. And hey, Factual Lie, good to see you. Got Curious Lay in the building, Laundered Amber. So, man. All right, so Lisa's next, you guys. Let's get to Lisa. And Lisa was, even with the index, hers is only 25 pages, so that's shorter. I mean, Shawn Grooms, which we just read, was the shortest of all of them, but I think this might be the second shortest, which is kind of surprising. But also, there wasn't the Lick 'em Low Lisa video yet. And obviously that took up a big chunk of change at trial, not just for the questions, but because the plaintiff's attorney decided to play all 13 minutes of change of it. So who knows? But that didn't exist. That wasn't part of these contentions when this deposition was taken on August 8th of 2025. So present in the building, we have Afroman's there. We have Shawn Grooms, Brian Newland, Sean Cooley, Lemon Pound Cake, and Randy Walters. So let's see. Lisa says she's never had a deposition taken before, was here and heard the rules, doesn't want to hear the rules again. Lisa, how are you employed? Adams County Sheriff's Department. How long have you been with them? September of 2002. When did you get your certification? In 2001. Where did you work at between 2001 and 2002? West Union Police Department, part-time. Did you come to the sheriff's office as full-time in 2002? Yes, sir, I did. Maybe we should look at, they're all coming over from this West Union Police Department. Maybe we've got to look at how they're training the newbies. So yeah, full-time, 2002. Would that be the reason you switched to go from part-time to full-time? Yes, sir. And what is your current rank? Sergeant. When were you promoted to sergeant? Honestly, I don't know without pulling the sheets and looking. Has it been a while then? It's been a while, yes, sir. Over 3 years? Yeah, I would say over 3. Well, the reason why I ask, because in 2022, 3 years ago, would you have been a sergeant? I don't know the exact date, so I'm not going to say yes or no. I don't know for sure. I don't keep track of all of that. That's not a thing for me, so. Which academy did you attend? Greenfield Police Academy in Hillsboro, Ohio. This may sound like a stupid question, but are you a duly certified peace officer in the state of Ohio? Yes, sir. Been since 2001? Yes, sir. Are you up to date on your continuing professional training? Yes, sir. Okay. Have you done any training that is not through APOTA or tracked by the AG's office? Yeah, I've done some. What can you tell me about that? I can't tell you all of them. I mean, I wouldn't know without looking in the files as far as the certificates go. But one of them, for example, is an active shooter out with TDI with John Benner. And when you say looking at the files, what files are you referring to? It would be like my personnel file as far as certifications. So a copy would be kept in your personnel file kept by the sheriff's office? Yes, sir. Is there a written policy at the Adams County Sheriff's Office for dealing with confidential informants? As far as policy goes, I'm not going to quote what's in the policy or what's not. If you want a copy of a policy, you can do a records request and get it. Okay, is there any specific title I would ask for in the public records request so they'd know exactly what I'm asking for? I'm sure if you wrote down that you wanted the policy of the Adams County Sheriff's Department, that you would get it. Okay, have you ever dealt with a confidential informant before? I've assisted. I haven't dealt with them personally myself. So you've never had a confidential informant that you recruited, worked with, all of that? No, sir. You just assisted other officers? Yep. Have you ever completed the confidential informant packet? No, sir. That's for the other person, right? I mean, I haven't. I can't say that. Well, I meant it would have been completed by the other officer you were assisting. Right, yeah, it wasn't me. Okay, does the Adams County Sheriff Office have a written policy in regards to search warrants and the execution of search warrants? I'll tell you the same thing I did a while ago. You can request the information for the policy. Oh, is she getting attitudinal? Like, that would have been like 1 page ago, lady. Okay, have you reviewed those policies during your time at the department? At some point I've read policies. As far as quoting them, I'm not going to do that. So what is the procedure one would go through as an officer at the Sheriff's Department to get a search warrant? A search warrant for me? That did not pertain to this case, so I'm not going to go into detail about a search warrant. Okay, so you're not going to... I didn't. I wasn't involved in the search warrant, getting the search warrant, so I don't feel like any other case that I've dealt with is relative to this. Okay. Oh, I'm not. Okay, let me rephrase my question. I'm not asking about any other cases, and we'll get to the search warrant on this one. I'm asking generally, if you had John Doe and you were getting a search warrant, what would be the process? The process of getting it? I mean, you would have to have, like, the affidavit of information. I mean, criminal charge. It would have to go in front of the judge and be signed by the judge. Okay, so if it wasn't able to get a search warrant, it wouldn't have been signed by the judge, is all I'm saying. Could you please explain that a little bit for me? Yeah, if it was not a legit search warrant, it would not have been signed by the judge. Oh, so nobody in the history of this country has ever decided that the search warrant was overbroad, that a judge approved a non-legitimate search warrant. Nobody's ever decided that before. We don't have proceedings to weigh in on those matters. Just, if a judge signs it, it's good. No more questions. So then David Osborne says, what's not a legit search warrant? I mean, some make-up lies or whatever would not be legit. You would have to have factual information. So anything on an affidavit is factual. This may sound stupid, but if the judge is just reading an affidavit, how is he going to know if it's a lie or if it's factual information? I mean, you explain the situation that you have. You just don't explain what's in that warrant. I've never explained what's in the warrant. I get warrants all of the time for internet crimes against the children, social media, so... And then here we are throwing in the, look how much of a hero I am. I do it all the time, I don't do anything wrong, and I do it for the children. So you would type up an affidavit and type up the search warrant, list the charges that the officer believes is there. Right. And then go to the judge, and the judge would obviously read it and probably ask the officer some questions. The officer would fill in the answers to those questions. Right? And then she says right. And then if the judge is satisfied, he'd sign. If he's not satisfied, he would tell you to go back and fix it. Right. And I've never had that happen to me. Which just sounds like rubber stamping, if you ask me. Which judge signs the most search warrants in Adams County? It depends. I mean, if I've had a search of the house, I've had Judge Spencer. Actually, for like social media, I've had Judge Gabbard. Have you ever heard the rumor that Gabbard's easier on search warrants than Spencer? And remember, David Osborne used to be a prosecutor. No, I have not. Why would you even say that? I'm just asking a question. Could you please take a look at the exhibit in front of you, Plaintiffs Exhibit 8? Have you seen that document before today? No, sir, I haven't. And this would be your first time looking at it? Yes, it is. And that being the search warrant for August 21st, 2022, were you on duty that day? No, sir, I was called out. When did you receive the phone call? Sometime in the evening. I don't know exactly what time it was. After lunch? Well, yeah. Before dark? Yeah. Do you remember who called you? I don't. Would it have been a sergeant who called you? Honest to God, I don't know who. I don't remember who called. So you're called in? Is that common? Well, yeah. So you got up or you come up to the station. What happens next? I mean, we was given a description of where we was going to and started being certain people had separate duties. What was your duties that day? I was the last car in, and as far as like hold the perimeter outside. Where was your location on the perimeter? As soon as you go down the driveway to the right, there's a tree right in that area. As soon as you go down the driveway where the gate is at, you on the driveway to the right, there was a tree. I'm not sure if there's a tree there now or not. I mean, that's where I was at in that area. Was that inside the gate or before the gate? That was inside the gate. Okay, so you would go past the gate and there would be a tree and you were stationed behind that tree? Yeah, we drove past the gate. How were you armed? To be honest with you, I don't remember. I might have had my carbines. I mean, I don't know. Okay, I haven't looked back at anything, so I couldn't tell you that. Okay, did you have your body cam on at that time? I'm pretty sure I did. Okay, so if we needed any information, we would just review the body cam? Yeah. And you said you're pretty sure you had your body cam? I had my body camera on. You did? Yes. So, you're behind this tree guarding the perimeter. Did you take part in the breach team? No, sir, I didn't. Did you take part in the search? Yes, sir. Okay, so walk through what happened between them breaching and you getting called in to aid with the search. Between them breaching and me aiding with the search? Uh-huh. What do you mean, what happened in between? How long? Well, we went to the house. So you're behind the tree. The team enters through the door, breaching the residence. Right. You're watching? I stayed out there for a period of time. About how long? I don't know. I can't give you that. You'd have to check the body cam. Okay, so you're out there. It's been a period of time. Does it come over the radio, hey, we need help? Does somebody stick their head out and say, hey, Lisa, give us a hand? I don't remember how it went. But that would be on the body cam? Yeah. When you went in the house, how did you aid in the search? Well, for a period of time, I was talking to, I believe she goes by Foreman, Angela Foreman, his ex-wife, so you were called in. So were you inside the house when Angela showed up or outside the house? I was outside the house. She pulled up in a car. Okay, did you talk with her outside the house or only inside the house? It was on the outside where I was standing, close to that area. So you were talking to her while you were at the tree? In that area, yes. So you're talking to her for a period of time. They ask you to come in, aid in the search. How did you aid in the search? I talked to her and then I helped search through stuff. Did you start up downstairs or upstairs? I didn't go upstairs. So you were downstairs only? Yep. Do you recall the areas you searched? I can't give you the exact area that I searched. I mean, there was a couple of rooms. I unhooked the cameras. Well, we'll get to the cameras. So you went through a couple of rooms downstairs, small bedrooms. Do you remember anything about those rooms? No, I don't. Okay, do you remember entering the basement? I couldn't tell you if the place had a basement. Do you remember finding any cages? I've never seen no cages. When you came in and they briefed you on this, did they tell you what you would be looking for in the search? Narcotics or that somebody was being held against their will? So you were looking for a kidnap victim and narcotics? Yes, sir. Somebody being held against their will. That's why I say kidnap victim. They must be like snippy. Right. Do you know if the person that was being held against their will was a juvenile or not? I'm not sure if it was a juvenile or not. Okay, so you complete the search of these couple of rooms downstairs, not really finding anything. How did you come to interact with the security system? How did I come to interact with it? Yes. By told to take it as evidence. Who told you that? I don't remember who told me that. But somebody would have told you, hey, we need this for evidence. Also, it would be common practice. The fact that something like that was happening, somebody was being held against their will, it's a good possibility that that would be on a camera. So that's why they would have took it is, yes, sir. In case to find it, the idea being you might not find the victim, but you'd find it on the drive. Well, to see if there's been something that's went and took on to that effect. Okay, so someone tells you to take it. You're getting that as evidence. Walk me through the process of how you retrieve it. How I retrieved it? Yes. I unscrewed it with my fingers. Okay, and that's the cables, correct? Yes, sir, in the back. Okay, but it was mounted to the wall. How did you get it from the wall? Here's what I'll tell you. I unscrewed it with my fingers very carefully. I don't remember if there was one or two that I couldn't get unscrewed with my fingers. I borrowed a multi-tool from Sergeant Walters, Randy Walters, and took it off carefully. There was no cutting of wires or anything that was obviously said. How did you dismount it from the wall? It was not jerked off the wall, it was taken off properly. How is that? I mean, how would you take something off the wall? Multiple ways. Well, I'm not going to jerk it off the wall. Phrasing. Did you use the same multi-tool to unscrew it from the walls? Look, I don't know how many bolts I'd undone with the tool. I did use it. I used it. Because there's no way I would jerk something out of something. I do have respect for other people's property. So as best as you can remember, you used the multi-tool to unscrew it from the wall? Yes, sir. And what did you do after it was retrieved? It was put in the place where it was going to be packed up for the evidence. Okay, who was tagging and packing evidence? I'm not sure who was tagging and packing it, but, I mean, as far as getting and collecting evidence, it would have been Sergeant Nuland. So just for clarification, and I'm asking this because I wasn't there. So all of the evidence as it was found was put in one central location, and Brian Newland was the one working on getting that tagged and bagged. I'm not going to say, I didn't see him tagging and bagging it, so I don't know as far as that goes. As far as the evidence being collected and taken out of there was Sergeant Nuland. Do you know how many people took place in the search? More than 6. That was going to be my question. Right. Do you remember? Because remember, Lisa's been sitting here for all the other questions. I think she arrived in the middle of one of them, but she was there otherwise. Do you remember the names of anyone else other than the 6 named plaintiffs who were involved in it? Yeah, but they're not involved in the suit, so I don't feel like I need to mention their name. Okay, well, if I ask this question, were they wearing body cams? I don't know whether they was or wasn't. I only ask because if they had body cams, it would be something that we could request from those people. Right, I understand that. So, after the removal of the security system, where did you search next? I believe it may have been the room where the CDs was at. Did you search the CDs? I went through some. What were you looking for? Any kind of narcotics. So like little bags? It could have been anything, with CDs on it, with video of so-and-so, human traffic or anything. Okay, so after searching the CDs, what happened next? I believe there were some searches in the buildings. You mean the outbuildings? Yeah, I don't remember exactly how many. Did you worked on those? Not all of them, but I was in some, a few. I don't know exactly how many. Did you find any cages in any of them? No, sir. Any evidence found in any of them? I'm not sure if there was or wasn't. I wasn't in all of them. But to the best of your knowledge, the ones that you searched? Right. Okay, so after the search of the outbuildings, did you do anything else? No, I don't believe so. I went home after that. And that's because you were called in and off that day? Just to assist. Okay, so other than assisting in the execution of the search warrant, did you have any other contact or involvement in the case? No, other than assist. Okay, did you ever have contact with the confidential informant? For this case? Yes. No. Is there anything else about the search I need to know? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, so there was some posts made in reference to the search. When did you first become aware of those? Shortly after. Can you define shortly, please? Within 2 or 3 weeks. 2 or 3 weeks, and how did you become aware? From other individuals either sending it or, hey, here's a heads up, your face is on Mona Lisa's body. Shortly after that, all of the phones started. Your client dancing in the driveway singing how I licked pussy, and I needed to learn how to count how many pussies I've licked. And I apologize to anybody about the wording, but that's exactly what was in the video. We understand that. So, I appreciate you being candid about that because it's very important that we're accurate. Absolutely. So, none of us are going to take offense. So, people would send you these posts or give you a heads up or message my daughter. My daughter wasn't even there. If something is going to be taken out, take it on me, not my kid. Who messaged your daughter? Multiple people messaged my daughter. People she knew or just random people? Here's the thing too, out of respect, and this is going down the line of what you're asking. Though when his ex-wife pulled up in her car, and I don't know if it was a female or male juvenile, I said, as far as us here doing the search, I would take your kid home. And that's what she did and bring it back, because I have respect for kids, and I would think somebody would have respect for mine. Okay, and so let me unpack that a little bit here, and then we'll come back to the posts. So you're saying that the other thing I would need to know, in addition to the search warrant, is that when Miss Foreman showed up, she had a child in the car. I remember we kind of saw that in the body cam, like they were back in the car. Yeah, she pulled in the driveway with the child and asked what was going on. Is there anything else I need to know about the search warrant? It's only been 3 years ago, so I'm not sure if there could be stuff in there that I don't remember. Okay, would your interaction with Miss Foreman be on the body cam? Yeah, so we would be able to see what you're talking about? Yeah, she was in there at the kitchen table. She's actually the one that called him to get the code to the safe, so yeah, she was in there. Who opened the safe with the code? I don't know, I wasn't around the safe. Okay, so going back to people messaging your daughter, do we know who they were? I told you I don't know who they were. There's some that I do know, but I'm not putting them in the middle of this. So you're suing someone because of the messages your daughter's getting, but you're not willing to name, you're even willing to protect the individuals that are sending the messages. Anyway, she says, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what's sad is the fact that, number one, that I have to be emotional because of your client's lies. I've had a deep voice my entire life. I did not wake up one morning and beg God to have a deep voice, all right? I have not had a sex change. I do not have a penis. I shouldn't have to prove I don't have a penis, or about having a bigger penis than the rest of the guys that I work with. Well, that's not a tough competition. And pulling people over and licking pussy, I mean, come on. Would you like to take a moment? No, keep going. I mean, my whole life is already jacked because of this. Because I have a heart. You know, not only that, when I worked in the school, I've been a research officer for, is it research or resource? 18 years of my life in the school system. All right? Obviously, I care about kids. I have certifications from the school from where I've done this, that, and the other. I want you to know that in the front of North Adams County Elementary, I direct the traffic about every morning unless something was going on. I opened the door for his children, helped them out of the vehicle, told them good morning, and have a good day multiple times. Not only that, that was turned around into how I was deep manly. I had a manly voice. So yeah. Any other posts you want to ask about? Well, so you say this has affected your life and jacked your life. Can you explain that, please? I mean, would you want somebody to say that about your mother? That your mother had a penis? I mean, I don't think it's appropriate, you know. I definitely wouldn't say it about somebody else. Obviously, I haven't had a sex change. I have a child, Mr. Osborne. So let's take a moment for a second. Can we go off the record? And then they come back, they say, so you say your life was jacked. Can you give me a specific example? The specific example question's back, guys. Yeah, do people mark their trafficking CDs, quote, human trafficking? Oh my goodness. Just crazy. Crazy. So, you say your life was jacked. Can you give me a specific example? Yeah, when you come home from work and your daughter's in tears and so sent this, or look what he's got about you on here today. These aren't specifics. None of these are ever specific. The most specific we ever got is Sean Cooley volunteering how he would fabricate a persistent disorderly conduct arrest because somebody was calling him a racist pound cake. That's the most specific example we got, and it was more him telling on himself than an example of anything Afroman was doing. So Osborne says, so your daughter in tears is what you're referring to with it causing your problems in your life. Well, yeah, at home, it shouldn't be done to my child. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be happening. Can you give me other examples? I mean, if the post wasn't put out there and stuff, the lies that, I mean, I didn't steal no money. I didn't tear up his camera system. I unhooked it properly. I unscrewed it. Nothing was cut with the scissor. Like the scissors that was on my Mona Lisa shirt. How my head was on the shirt, on her body, and then the sweaters and everything else that was sold. How would you like to go to Walmart and be called a guy because of your voice? Or because of your voice or because of Afroman? Or ask if you got a pecker. How would you like that? How would you like a female or a guy ask you if you've got a vagina? Probably not. So, can you give me a date and time and who said that at Walmart? No, I can't give you a date and time, but I can tell you, Holly Johnson, I could have her come in as a witness. How do you know Holly Johnson? She works here in the county. Shortly after the search warrant and, the post has gone out, and everybody's talking about it, Lieutenant Lickum Lisa, be hollered at you. I was on my way to work one morning, right in the Panhandle, stopped at a stop sign. The commissioners had a contracted crew that was working in the Panhandle. I get hollered, Lieutenant Lickum Lisa Phillips, by somebody that's contracted through our county. So I go back and talk to Holly about it. It was on video. It was right in front of the courthouse where the guy come in and apologized to me with some sunglasses on and thought that was like some kind of respectful or something. But hey, he apologized to me and I didn't shake his hand. Okay, did Holly make him apologize? I don't know whether she made him or not. I was working at the courthouse that day. Okay, how would he have known where you were if she didn't contact him? She did contact him. I don't know if she made him apologize. Okay, so you're planning to call Holly as a witness? Well, yeah, go ahead. There was a video, too. There's a video of the guys coming and apologizing, so... A video of them apologizing? Yeah. But there's no video of the incident? No, I was coming to work through the Panhandle. Can you give me more instances? I would say that's probably about enough. Okay, you're claiming harm to your reputation. Can you explain to me that harm? You go on calls, or you don't even have to be working to get a holler from Lieutenant Lickum Lisa Phillips, pussy licking. Okay, you never... Have you had a sex change? I mean, something I've never had to deal with before. Have I been cussed before? Absolutely. Have I had to deal with anything like this in my life? Absolutely not. Have you ever had derogatory things said about you due to your voice on the force before? Yeah, I've had that, yeah. They don't make money off me. I shouldn't have to prove I don't have a penis. So, other than yelling obscene, but the question is going to your harm to your reputation. So whether or not they make money off of it is irrelevant. If you have other people that are already saying these things, and it's actually separate from the merch that Afroman's selling, then this is something that your reputation, it's not solely attributable to what you're claiming Afroman did. So other than the yelling obscenities, have you had a sex change? Do you have a penis? Stuff like that. What other harm to your reputation have you had? Who I am. I've worked in the sheriff's office for 23 years. I don't have a write-up in my file. I respect all people I come in contact with, and there's numerous people that can tell you that. So you still don't have anything in your file? Like, where's your... Can you explain that some more? You say you have no write-up in your file. I mean, I'm telling you that I'm not a disrespectful person. I respect everybody I come across, and this has made it hard to where I have to swallow it because of him. Things that's being said. Are you Lieutenant Lickum Lisa Phillips, pussy-licking Phillips? Pulling cars over, the song, pulling cars over and eating pussy. I mean, really? That's obviously affected me. And in what ways? There's 2 or 3 times I've had to go home from working because of it. There's another video. Here's what else is coming about. Have you heard this song? So how many days of work have you missed due to this? Honestly, probably 3 or 4. Did you take sick days or leave unpaid? I'm sure if I have so much vacation time, I don't know if I took sick leave or not. Have you seen a doctor in relation to this? No, not entirely because of this, but yeah, I have. Would you like to elaborate on that? No, it's nobody's business. Are you claiming damages due to seeing the doctor? It sure hasn't made life easier. Is that a yes or a no? The sole purpose of me seeing a doctor, I see a doctor like a normal doctor. Like you probably have a family doctor yourself. But I was recommended to seek counseling, and I didn't seek counseling because who wants that on the internet to let somebody find out that you're seeing a counselor? Who recommended you see a counselor? I have such a gripe with this idea that, I don't think officers should be outwardly stigmatizing seeking help, seeking therapy, seeking mental health treatment. And I think it's concerning. I think it's so concerning that they're afraid to be made fun of for going to see a counselor. Because that means they wouldn't be forthcoming when there's a real reason that they might be on edge to the point where it would impact their duties, where they might step on somebody, cross the line. They're not going to do the right thing to take action and prevent it, to get back to normal. All because she's afraid of someone making fun of it. Who recommended you see a counselor? My doctor information is not needed in this. Do you know the difference between a civil case and a criminal case? Well, obviously. I'm answering your questions. Who's your family doctor then? Why do I have to tell you my family doctor name? Okay, would there be any notes that the doctor would have took about stuff you said in relation to this and how it affected you? It's a possibility, but I'm pretty sure that's HIPAA. So you talked to your family doctor then about this during a normal visit? I have because of medication and stuff. Standard medications you took or things that he's prescribed due to this? Or like blood pressure medicine has went up. You're having anxiety and being emotional. Explain the anxiety and emotional. What was prescribed for that? That's not none of your business too. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a jerk to you, but that's okay. What I take in my medication is nobody's business. Okay, were you prescribed something for it? Yes, sir, I was. But as we sit here today, you're not going to go into any more information than that. Not other than my doctor. No, I don't feel like I need to. Do you intend to call your doctor as a witness? If I need to, I will. I would rather not put her in the middle of it unless I have to. I don't know if this is just trying to be in denial and indignant and self-righteous during this interview. That could just be all it is. But also, I would hope that any plaintiff's attorney would say, hey, if we file this lawsuit, somebody's going to want to try to air out some dirty laundry. They're going to want to do some discovery. They're going to want to have access to facts that might go to proving or disproving your claims or helping them raise any sort of defense against those claims. And some of what they might have the right to look at, and might even become public information, would be these little things that would back up your claim. So for example, if you're claiming like you're suffering this emotional distress, they might ask about your medical history. And if you've gotten any sort of diagnosis, if you've seen somebody, like that warning should be given before someone files a complaint and gets to the stage where, you know, you can't just withdraw your complaint anymore. Like, like we thought we could just follow a lawsuit and nobody would question. And I do think that this might just be the witness being self-righteous. I'm hoping that they were aware that, yes, this is the pros and cons of filing this litigation. Here's what to expect, generally speaking. So anyway, was she the one that recommended seeking counseling? Yes. So then this doctor would be relevant. And that's not been fulfilled as of today's date. So you're saying your family doctor told you to go get counseling because of Afroman, but you haven't gone to get this counseling. And all you have is this loop-de-loop, well, I don't want to call the doctor because I don't want to put her in the middle of this. Did your doctor really recommend that? Or was it just a serious in passing, like maybe you did mention something, but the doctor explained options generally speaking, and it wasn't a, hey, I'm finding here that you are truly suffering harm because of this thing you told me was happening in your life, and my prescription for you essentially is go seek this counseling. Like, I feel like she's just beating around the bush. And that's not been fulfilled as of today's date. Nope, it hasn't. So you're asking for damages due to emotional distress. When you say emotional distress, can you tell me exactly what that means in the context? Look at me in the face and tell me what it means. What does emotional distress mean to you? Obviously this right here. Would you like a moment? And I feel like Osborne, I'm just picturing him. I feel like seems to be the type of attorney that would, what he's saying might, if we just read it on paper, oh, would you like a moment? Or would you like a moment? And I think it might be more the latter. She says, no, I want to keep going. I hope this goes live on social media. You know, maybe this will. Well, here we are reading it. Why would you want this to go live? I don't want it to go live. I'm being sarcastic, and I shouldn't have probably said that. Oh, so now we understand sarcasm. But, you know, this is ridiculous. It should have never got to this point, period. You think somebody ought to have enough respect for you, you know? What does respect have to do with this lawsuit? I mean, honestly, it don't. It's just kind of like your doctor information has nothing to do with this lawsuit. Yes, it does, if that's part of your claim. If one of the ways you can show emotional distress is that your doctor's saying, oh my God, you're dealing with so much emotional distress from this incident that you need to go speak to somebody. Here's my recommendation. Here's my referral. Go see if your insurance will cover this. Doesn't your department cover stuff like this? Go seek this out. Here's two options. Here's this one in this shopping plaza. Here's one over here that might be a little further away, but try them both. Like, did your doctor recommend that stuff? Because that's super relevant. So, Osborne says, okay, so you've asked for in excess of $25,000 due to emotional distress. How did you figure that number? You'd have to ask the attorney. I didn't figure a number individual, so. Okay, as to today's date, if I was trying to calculate your emotional distress damages, how would I go about doing that? There's not a value on it, buddy. I can't tell you. There's nothing that can be taken back. There's nothing that, whatever he's posted that's been shared and shared and shared and shared, you know, obviously if it wasn't ever put on there, it wouldn't have got that far. And the lies. I didn't tear up his camera system. His money wasn't stolen. Okay, how do you know it wasn't stolen? There was an investigation on it. Tell me about the investigation. I didn't do the investigation. You're saying you knew there was one, so tell what you know. Right, because there was a miscount. That's what I knew. How did they determine there was a miscount? Contact the previous sheriff and see who he made contact with. It's just she doesn't want to talk. Are you aware that the Cincinnati Enquirer ran an article on that investigation? You can't believe nothing you see in newspapers. Oh! Oh, tell us about that, Lisa. Tell us about that, Lisa. You mean no reasonable person would believe what they see when they're reading something? Does that apply to online and social media posts too, or just newspapers? So Osborne says, why not? Why would you? Because the newspaper said that we stole his money. That's true. I don't think so, because I have a pecker on social media. Is that true? What do you mean by that? Well, I'm just saying you can't believe what's in the Cincinnati Enquirer. So I'm kind of curious as to why I can't believe the Cincinnati Enquirer. Have you had a case, a newspaper blow it out of proportion? That's a no. Do you happen to know that that's happened? You can go ahead and whatever to the next. Okay. You've asked for harm to your reputation. Can you give me an example of harm to your reputation? Of who I am. I care about who I am. When you say who I am, are you referring to the way other people view you? You know, I've helped with boot camp for years and years, and it's bad when you hear something from a kid, you know. Isn't there a whole show about how kids say the darndest things? He says, so back to the question. When you say who I am, are you referring to the way other people view you? Yeah, because of him. Not all people. What do you mean? I mean, not all people. Not all people think I'm a piece of shit like he does. So, you've had people come up to you and tell you that they don't believe this is right and everything. I've had people holler and everything else. I'm being crooked. Has all of the interaction you've gotten from this been negative? Not all of it, I just told you that. In your complaint, you've asked for excess of $25,000 due to reputational harm. Do you know how that number was calculated? No, I don't. As you sit here today, do you know how you would calculate that money? How do you calculate it? Is that this is my life. My life. To me, my life is worth more than that, way more than that. When you say your life, my life, as far as my emotions, what I've had to go through because of all of this. What do you mean your emotions? I already explained to you emotions. But as far as price, you can do that with the attorney. Okay, so when you say your emotions, you mean the fact that you're emotional about what happened and it has affected you? It has affected me. So I guess my confusion lies. You say my life, are you referring to you as a living individual or your life as far as how the community and people as a living individual? I mean, I wouldn't have to have medicine, increased if it was not bothering me. Be video cross, so increased. Not put on something, but increased. And that's right after, these dashes here. Seems like she was about to say something and then switched her words. I wouldn't have to be on medicine. She just says medicine generally, and then increased. Be video crossed, or, here's another video about at work, and then have to go home because, it gets old, and because I have a heart, I guess, Have you ever had death threats before? I really don't think I have. Have you had death threats since the search? As far as individually, there's been comments or somebody has called into the sheriff's department and said things. Has the prosecutor prosecuted anybody in relation to that? I don't know. Is making a death threat against an officer a crime? I would think it would be okay. I wouldn't think it would be okay. Is it odd that no one was criminally charged for that? I don't know that nobody has or hasn't been. To your knowledge? Right. You've never been listed as a witness on a case? Listed as a witness on a case? Listed as a witness or a victim on a case where somebody would be prosecuted for giving death threats to you? No. These people then message your daughter. Did you provide these names to the sheriff? No. I'm not, and this is actually a great question. So, I don't know why they didn't do something. I couldn't tell you that. They should have, though. This is from the same deposition earlier on where there's never been a search warrant that relied on non-facts. There's never been a search warrant that signed that wasn't legitimate. Within the same deposition, same hour and a half, however long this took, now we're getting This same prosecutor's office that interacts with the judges, the whole web that we're tangled in together. Oh, well, I couldn't tell you why they never prosecute any of these threats. And very great question from David Osborne here. Again, used to be a former prosecutor. Well, you're playing coy. You're acting like you wouldn't know if they did or not. But if you're the one that said, hey, somebody's threatening me, you'd be listed as one of the state's witnesses because you're the complaining witness. So if you haven't been notified that you've been complained, stop beating around the bush here and just say, no, none of the threats that you've made have proceeded further to some type of investigatory or prosecution pathway. Just say no. That was a very good question there. So these people that messaged your daughter, did you provide these names to the sheriff? No, I'm not going to put my daughter in the middle of this. Well, maybe have her get off the messenger. Okay, did you talk to the people individually and ask them to stop? No, you can't stop something that somebody has already put out there. I don't know. I don't have kids. So maybe this isn't the way it works. But isn't there an option to go speak, if it's like peers from her school, to take the phone and say, hey, don't send messages like this again. This is so-and-so's mom. Isn't there a way to call the parent, call the other parent and say, look, I know it's crazy. I know it's high profile. And like Lisa said earlier in this deposition, I should be taking the brunt of it. It shouldn't go to my kids. Like, couldn't you just explain that same thing to another parent? And maybe that parent's an asshole. Maybe that parent wants to make fun of you too. But maybe that parent would understand why their kid shouldn't be making fun of another kid, like a bystander. Like, it just seems like there's all these different scenarios here where if you really wanted this to stop for your child, there are different pathways that you could take to make this actually stop for your child. And instead, it once again just seems like, oh, but the children being used as a crutch. And again, I don't know how old the daughter is, but if they're at that age where, maybe restrict the social media time if it's affecting them, if it's impacting them. I don't know. Yeah, you could block them. Tell the daughter to block them. Especially those that might not be in school, but it's just a message online. Make the profile private, at least for a little bit. Should you have to make your profile private? I mean, that sucks to be in that situation, but it is a remedy. It becomes a choice. Do I want to block this noise out or do I want to let it keep coming in? And you have that choice, and I don't really see, just because you don't want to exercise that choice or think of options, think of solutions, that some other person who isn't even the person making these messages is financially liable. So I don't know. Hey, Tatum. You're late, but you're right on time. Late, but you're right on time. Just crazy. So anyway, she's not going to put her daughter in the middle of this. And at face value, I mean, good for you. At face value, I think that's a wise thing people should be doing. Below the surface, I don't really think we're taking precautions to really ameliorate this problem. It says, okay, did you talk to the people individually and ask them to stop? No, you can't stop something that somebody has already put out there. So you haven't asked those people to stop contacting your daughter? I mean, and here's the thing too about that. The last meeting I believe that we was in, that you were supposed to have your client stop stuff, and currently there's stuff all over there out in the media. So I mean, you haven't asked your client to stop, and obviously he hadn't. Well, that is not what this question was about. What's still out in the media? What's not? The dancing about my licking pussy in the driveways there. My picture. Sergeant Newland's family. The pictures. All of the pictures. It's all still there. So obviously he don't know when you tell him to take it down what that means. Have you brought that to the attention of your attorney? Yes, I have. And when was that? I believe I seen an email that you said it would be taken down. Well, that's not you bringing the attention to somebody. That's you saying you saw something. And you're saying that was not done? Absolutely not. Also, Sergeant Walters, about having sex with his wife, is still on there too. Nothing has went down. And have you been looking at these posts? To look to see if they went down after you said you was going to ask your client to be taken down. Yeah, I seen them. On what platform did you look at them on? They're on YouTube, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, Facebook, obviously on Facebook because people keep sharing it. You know, I can't stop from people sharing it, but if you remove the actual thing, it wouldn't be on there anymore, now would it? So when you say it's still out there, you're saying people are still sharing other copies of these posts. Sharing his posts, it's still on his profile. Do you monitor his profile? I don't monitor his profile, but I have looked to see if my name, the song that's made for me and that he's made fame off about licking pussy, yeah. I mean, you'd probably do the same thing if it was a song made about you. So I think this is the fast-paced one. The one that got looped like 3 times. Because they wanted to say, here's the Facebook one, here's the Instagram one, here's, I don't know if it was like TikTok, but they're like, here it was posted on 3 different platforms. So when we're talking about your damages, are you referring to you personally, or are you including your family and daughter in this? Well, it would be including me, because, you know, that's my family. So your idea of damages extends also to your family. It's made it, you know, worse, the situation in the home. So yeah, how has it made it worse in the home? It's made it emotionally worse. Has anyone else had to seek therapy or seek a doctor from relation to this in the home? Not that I'm aware of. Should anyone else be a party to this lawsuit other than yourself? Nope. Other than the one lady identified before, what other witnesses would you call to trial other than the people named in this lawsuit? I'm not putting anybody else in the middle. I mean, it's been bad enough. Are you saying there's no one else to call, or there is other people and you don't want to call them? I'm not going to put anybody else in the middle of this, is what I said. So is there other witnesses that would be called or no? That could be called or no? Not off the top of my head. Just Holly? Would that be affirmative? From what? I said other than Holly. I don't have anybody else. I really don't want to put her in the middle of it. I mean, I can, if you want access to the video, you can do a records request and I'll get you the video of her and the 2 gentlemen that was contracted to do the work on the panhandle. I'll get you a copy of that video if you want that. Is that video still kept even though it's over 3 years now? It was regarding me, yeah, so it's mine. What do you mean it's mine? I still have a copy of the video, so I mean, that's what it means. So she got a copy of it? Osborne says, no offense, Lisa, but I have to ask this question. If this is affecting you emotionally, why would you keep a copy of that video? Because I have, so it was, because it's proof. The same as your client was supposed to take the stuff down, and I've looked because he hasn't taken it down. That's why I took, because obviously your client don't know what take something down means. Have you provided a copy of that video to your attorney? No, I haven't. You wanted an example, I gave you an example. Okay, so now we know there's this video about 2 people apologizing with Holly. What other evidence is there that you have that can help you prove your case? I mean, I don't need anything else to prove it. I mean, the thing's pretty plain and simple. I don't have anything else, so you don't need to write anything else down. In addition to humiliation, or in addition to reputation, emotional distress, you've asked for damages in relation to humiliation. Can you tell me about the humiliation you've suffered? Is it different than what we've already discussed, or is it the same thing as we've already discussed? It's nothing that we haven't already discussed. I mean, we've already discussed it. You've asked for in excess of $25,000. Do you know how you came up with that number? I don't. As you sit here today, if I wanted to calculate that number, do you have any idea how I would calculate that number? You can make contact with our attorney. You also asked your attorney fees. Asked for your attorney fees. Do you have any idea how much you paid your attorney to date? I don't think that's any of your business either. Okay, what kind of resolution would you like to see in this case? You know, honestly, there's no taking this away. I mean, it's out there. It's been out there for 3 years. I can't fix what's happened. I mean, I know the truth. I know I was called in to assist and I done my job. I'm not a crooked cop, I'm not a thief, and I sure don't have a penis. So when you say, and you have the charge, Publicity given to private life. What does that mean to you exactly? It's affecting my private life. So it should be unreasonable effect given your private life, not publicity to your private life. I mean, there's publicity, obviously. He's made all kinds of money off us. I mean, not just me, the other guys too. Does that upset you? Here's how I look at this. So if it was somebody that you truly cared about and you put out there on video saying that they have a penis, you know, making lies of someone that they're not, and I think there would be a problem. Yeah, it's going to affect you. And that should apply to everybody in our society. I mean, everybody in this society hasn't made money off me selling shirts and got pictures off of the sheriff's office page, you know, of us standing and then having me on their gate. Have you seen the gate? Obviously, it was all over social media. But you've never physically seen it, though? Physically, I have seen it. When was that? I don't know when it was. I didn't try to remember the day. You keep saying making money. Why do you keep making that statement over and over? Because he has. Mr. Klingler, hang on a second. I'll just object to the form of question. I don't know that she said making money over and over again. She said it appropriate places in response to your questions, but go ahead. Okay, let me rephrase the question. Is what's upsetting you more that Mr. Foreman has made money or the fact of the way he thinks about you? As a person, it's humiliating and he shouldn't be making money off me. Lies. Do you have any other family members who worked in law enforcement? He's dead. What do you mean by that? I'm just asking. And then Osborne says, can we break? Then they come back. Lisa, is there anything else I need to know that we haven't already discussed? Klingler objects to the form of question. She's here to answer your questions. I don't know what you mean by need to discuss, but if you've got any more questions, she'll answer them. And then no further questions, and they sign off. So that was the deposition of Lisa. Look 'em low, Phillips. And then we have Brian. Let's get Brian locked and loaded. I want this load up. Make this bigger. Why doesn't this want to expand? That's weird. Okay, much better. So yeah, this one is 63 pages with the index. I don't mean, maybe there's like an exhibit. Yeah, I don't think there's an exhibit. So this one's going to be kind of long. Let's see. Yeah, this one's 39 pages of actual transcript. So this would be a good time if you guys need a refill, take a drink. This one's going to be long. It's the last deposition they did, at least from what I can see that was filed. So yeah, chicken shite with the dollar signs over here. Tatum reminding us that it's Lick 'em Low Lisa. Tatum, thanks for becoming green again. Did YouTube kick your month count off? YouTube likes to do that, but we know you've been here. We know you've been here for a long time. Thank you very much. Let's see, we've got... Yeah, do we know how much money he's gotten? I think he said it was like close to 20,000, but not the full amount. So Ron is sad because the likes aren't mathing. We don't want the like counter to be a mismatch like that evidence envelope. We want it to match. So if you're here, please hit the like button. We don't want an undercount, a miscount. Yeah, Joseph says, does she actually talk this way, or all those nonsensical statements just typos? I think a small combination of both. But I do think, like, phonetically it's capturing things for the most part as she says them. So yeah, some girl, question of the day. How can she sue for damages if she thinks all of her damages are nobody's business, including the court? It's just silly. It's just silly. Yes, this is baby making Brian, guys. Baby making Brian. So let's see. We've got hanging on here. We have Afroman. We have both of the Shawns, and we have Randy Walters. Lisa went home after her deposition because this is like shortly after Lisa's ended. This one started up on the same day. All right. They said it's fine to call him Brian during this deposition. He doesn't want the instructions repeated. And, okay, Brian, how are you employed? Oh, I don't have his picture up. In case you forgot who he was. There we go. I'm currently a police officer with the department in Hamilton County, Ohio. Okay, so you're with Hamilton County. Not with Hamilton County, a department in Hamilton County. One of the political subdivisions? Correct. And how long have you been employed by that subdivision? Since October of 2023. And prior to October 2023, where were you employed? I was employed with the Adams County Sheriff's Office. How long were you employed with them? From 2024 until 2023, so 9 years. And where did you work prior to the Sheriff's Office? Prior to the Sheriff's Office, I worked for the Lincoln Heights Police Department. Where's Lincoln Heights? It's also a suburb of Cincinnati. Cincinnati is big, so it's a suburb of Cincinnati along 75. Along 75? Just below Evendale. Okay, so close to Evendale? Correct. And how long did you work in Lincoln Heights? Well, that was my first job out of the police academy. I worked there for 2 or 3 months before I took a full-time job at the sheriff's office. So did you leave Lincoln Heights because it was part-time? Yes. I asked that because that seems to be the trend. Everybody gets a part-time and then moves to a full-time position. Right. Are you full-time currently? Yes, I am. So where did you attend the academy at? Great Oaks Police Academy. And you would have graduated in 2014. And this may sound stupid, but are you a duly licensed peace officer in the state of Ohio? Yes. Are you up to date on your CPTs? Yes. Have you had any other training offered through APOTA? Yes. Can you detail that for me? I can't think of them all right offhand, but some are advanced, or the recourse advanced interview and interrogation, homicide investigation, overdose death investigation, advanced criminal investigations, searching a crime scene, and criminal photography investigation. I have a long list of training. Tell me about this advanced criminal interrogation. It's called the advanced interview interrogation. It's really just a course that teaches you how to look for clues and deception during an investigation. Obviously listed information, how to approach an investigation when it comes to interviewing and interrogating people. Okay, and when would you have taken that class? That was sometime in 2020, maybe May, or maybe 2021. And he talked about searching crime scenes. Tell me about that class. The crime scene investigation? Yes. It was tailored towards more forensic aspects, like photography, collecting blood, so not counting money. From murder scenes, bodily fluid, from just different kinds, kind of like biological evidence from investigating a crime scene. Like hair follicles and stuff? Correct. This may sound stupid, but something you would find on CSI. Yes. So, have you ever worked with a confidential informant before? Yes. Tell me about how you go about the process of obtaining a confidential informant. It can happen, there's multiple ways that you can develop an informant ranging from if they have, a motivation to where they just want to help the community. Or there's been an instance where they've been incarcerated and they've got with their attorney who has went to the prosecutor's office and said their client wants to be a cooperating witness or a confidential informant. And this is sort of the first time we're having this reason stated out. And sometimes you may get somebody with a 0.5 gram of methamphetamine and they're like, hey, I'll buy, like it was mentioned earlier, I do a buy. I'll purchase methamphetamine from the guy that I buy from in exchange for leniency or cooperation, in my criminal case. There's just a bunch of different avenues an informant can be developed. Okay, is there a standard practice for developing a confidential informant? As far as making somebody an informant, or, is there a standard procedure they teach you at the academy in relation to this? No, there's not. Is there a class you take that teaches you how to do this? I know that there's a class for cultivating informants. You just plant the seeds, you water them, and they grow. I haven't attended it. Okay. Is there a written policy at the Adams County Sheriff's Office when you were there? Not that I'm sorry. That detailed dealing with confidential informants? Not that I was aware of. How are you trained on confidential informants? By experience. So I got promoted, or I got moved back to investigations where there was another detective there and kind of just started doing things how he did them. And who was that detective? Detective Sam Purden. Is Sam still a detective? To the best of my knowledge, he is not. So when were you moved to the detective branch? I think 2018, the end of 2017. beginning of 2018. Is it normal to have only been with the force 4 years and moved up to that? I don't think there's a set time frame. I think the sheriff just picked somebody that was motivated, and remember he said he wanted adventure. Or exciting. He wanted something exciting. Were you also promoted to a sergeant around that time? Approximately a year later, maybe. So, you were a detective prior to becoming a sergeant? Correct. This may sound stupid, but what's your current role at the political subdivision of Cincinnati? I'm a detective. You're a detective there? So, you left the sheriff's office to become a detective there? No, I left the sheriff's office. I started out in patrol working night shift, and then I just worked my way up. And then, once an opening became available, I applied for a position with the detective division. Is the process by which a detective is selected down there very similar to the sheriff's department? No. What's the difference? Here, the sheriff just kind of asked me if I'd be interested in doing it and then moved me over there. With my current department, you had to submit a letter of intent and then go through a 3-panel interview. And they would decide someone based on the interview? Correct. So is it a fair statement to say in Adams County, the sheriff chooses who's going to be a detective? At that time, yeah. And who was the sheriff at that time? Sheriff Kimmy Rogers. So you learned about confidential informants and how to deal with them from Sam Purdon? Yes. And can you tell me about the process that he told you? There really was no process that he taught me. When I was moved back there, he already had some investigations going on that he was currently working, and I was assisting him with that and just kind of picked up on how to do it. So you picked up through experience? Yes. So you mentioned before that a person could become a confidential informant by multiple ways. You said one was if the person had a 0.5 gram of meth and wanted to do a buy for leniency or something. Correct. Detail that process to me. How does that person become a confidential informant? So, just as an example, a road patrol deputy stopped someone on a traffic stop. The traffic stop resulted in them having 1 gram of meth. The traffic stop resulted in them having the gram of meth. If that suspect mentioned to the deputy, hey, I know this information. I can buy from this person. He would forward that information to me. And most likely would go seize the drugs, do a report, and let that guy go or that girl go for the time being. I would speak with the sheriff, speak with the prosecutor, and then we would just go from there if we were going to set up a buy or not. If we decided not to, once the lab results was obtained, that person would be indicted on their charge, or if they failed to cooperate, then they would be indicted on their original criminal charge. Is that the way it always happens? That's not the way it always happens. That's just the most common way. What's another way it could happen? As far as, well, let's be honest about this, Brian. People are always arrested with drugs on them. They're not always let out and go. Right. So can a person become a CI after being arrested or after being booked? Like, say they're booked in the jail, and then Osborne shakes his head yes, and Brian says yes. Tell me about that process. If they're booked in the jail, they could be in the jail for a couple of days, like I said. Maybe they're already appointed defense counsel. They can talk with their attorney and say, if I do this, or I can do that, can I get some kind of leniency or get my charge dropped or lowered to a lesser offense? They'll present that to the prosecutor's office, see what they say, and then if that's something that can be done, they'll contact whatever detective is working or available and see if they would be interested in what they can do. Is any of this ever put in writing? I'm not sure if it's put in writing through the prosecutor. I know that it has been. I don't know that it's a common occurrence that it's put in writing or not. When you were working with CIs, was that common to put in writing? No, I never worked a bunch of CIs already in jail, so I wouldn't really know. Okay, have you ever worked a CI that was working specifically so they didn't get charged? Yes. Did you ever write down notes in reference to that in this case? In that case? Yeah, any of the cases in any criminal case would have had a report done that drugs that have been booked into evidence and sent to BCI for testing the same way as any other person. How would we know that they were a confidential informant? Where would that be written down? So that would have been a file that I would have retained. As previously stated, I would have filled out a packet, which is their personal information, their criminal history, and any acknowledgement of what they can and cannot do while an informant for the Adams County Sheriff's Office. I would have retained those, or the sheriff would have retained those files, and whoever was pertinent to that investigation would have knowledge of it. So when you say packet, what packet are you referring to? It's an informant. I don't recall what the exact name is, what the title is, but it's essentially just a page, front and back, or 2 pages, and it assigns the informant a number, and then it goes off their information, as far as like their full name, their address, their personal identifiers, height, weight, birthday, they have a valid driver's license, and then it goes through a list of stuff like, you will not be involved in drug activity unless you have a pre-authorization from a detective or law enforcement officers, the do's and don'ts that they can or can't do. Okay, and that's retained in the file? Correct. Is that packet always completed for every CI? When I first started, it wasn't. About a year, maybe 2 years into working investigations, it started going. Probably around 2020, I would say, is when we started doing them. So you say started doing them. You mean the increase that every CI had one? Correct. Any CI, let me correct that. Any informant that was going to be used on a continual basis for more than one case, there was definitely a packet. Okay, can you clarify that? Because that seems to beg the question. What do you mean on a continual case? So if I had an informant that was working multiple investigations or doing vice for multiple targets, or they will do a buy on this and then they were still going to continue to perform activities as an informant. What do you mean by targets? So a target is a common term for a drug dealer or any subject in our investigation. It's just a common law enforcement term for a suspect. Why not call them alleged perpetrator? I mean, any term can be used. It's just a term that's used. I mean, I didn't create the term. So you were taught the term by Sam? I wasn't taught, no. I wasn't specifically taught the term by Sam. It's just a common term that everybody in law enforcement uses. Okay, so you said that you would have a packet for sure completed if they were going to be used on a continual basis. What if, and you seem to leave open the fact that it may not have been done if it was on one-off. Well, it depends. If they were going to be utilized by me as a confidential informant, so if it was somebody that just come in wanting to give information or said, hey, this guy's got a warrant and he's at this location, I wouldn't sign them up. Even though they technically are informing, I wouldn't sign them up as a confidential informant. Okay, it's just a case-by-case basis. Depending on what the circumstances are, what the investigation is, it's never a specific way to do things. Okay, when you were at the Adams County Sheriff's Office, was there a written policy on how to do the search warrants? How to execute a search warrant? How to draft one No, there was not. How to execute one? Was there? There was a policy on those types of operations. I don't know if it specified search warrants or not. What do you mean type of operations? Like a high-risk operation, like anything. Like a search warrant or making entry into a home or a residence or another structure. So there was a policy? It's kind of like a guide, correct? Okay, can you tell me what you remember about that policy? I don't remember anything about it. Do you remember at least reviewing it? Yes. Do you know when you reviewed it? I don't. This may sound stupid, but is it different than the one at your current place? I assume it is, yes. You assume it is? Well, I would have to have them in front of me to compare. Okay, well, that's a bad question. When you were reviewing the policy at the place you work at now, was there anything that struck you as saying, hey, we don't do it that way? No. Okay. Were you still working at the Adams County Sheriff's Office on August 21st, 2022? Okay, yes. Were you on duty that day? No. Okay, were you scheduled for vacation? It was a weekend, I believe. I was already off work. Okay, so what caused you to come into work? I received a call from Sergeant Estep with some information that him and Deputy Shawn Cooley responded to some kind of domestic dispute or an assault of some type, and one of the guys that was involved had gave them some information that a female was in possession of a bunch of marijuana. So this is why we're going to do the knock and talk. So, and then they stated that allegedly it was tied to your client, who was referred to commonly as Afroman's, Joseph Foreman, and wanted to know if I wanted to come and help with the investigation or come in and check out the information. You said for a second, come in and participate in the investigation. Were they already working on it? No, so they had just received the information and they were forwarding it to me, wanting to know if I was wanting to come in and do anything with the information, like investigate it or something along those lines. This guy hopped up off the couch and said, I'm going to take Afroman down today. Here is my thrill. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Oh my goodness. It says, okay. And so when would you have gotten that call? It was probably maybe around 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Okay. I don't know for sure. Okay. And so I would assume that you went ahead and came in. Yes. So what did you do next when you got in? So myself, I don't recall if I came to the office or if I went over to the Winchester area first. But me and Deputy Cooley, so Pound Cake, or maybe this is Justin, we went to the female's house on Heather Holly Lane. She was also a victim in an arson where some individuals tried to catch her vehicle on fire. So we went there to talk about that. But you only go to talk to her about this arson because you just got a tip that she has marijuana. And while doing so, I asked her about the marijuana, or that we had received some information that she'd had some marijuana. She confirmed that she did and invited us in, and that's where we recovered the marijuana. Okay, did she take you guys to the marijuana? Yes. So then she took you and showed you it. Where did she take you and show you? It was I think it was a bedroom. It was a room, yeah. It would have had to have been a bedroom. It was off the hallway. You go through the living room, down a hallway, and I think it was the last doorway to the left. Okay, and so you obtained this. What happened next? So she gives us permission to look in the room, and we come back across this, like, big black kind of Tupperware thing. It had some marijuana in it. It had a bunch of your client. It was Afroman's merchandise, some magazines, and, like, I think, like, some beer, some cans of beer or bottles of beer. So we seize that, and we go back to the sheriff's office, and I conduct an interview with her. Okay, so did you transport her to the sheriff's office? I can't say that I didn't. I think she drove on her own. I don't recall, it's been so long. Isn't that a little scary, letting her drive on her own? Why? She can drive away. I mean, if she did, then we would have went a different route, but she followed us back to the sheriff's office. She wasn't under arrest at that time. She was not under arrest. Why was she not under arrest? She just wasn't under arrest at that time. Do you know how much marijuana was found in her possession? David knows. David Osborne knows. I don't recall offhand. What if I told you it was over 2,000 grams, specifically 2,131? Would that sound about right? Likely, yes. Is that not a felony amount of marijuana? Yes. Why wouldn't she be under arrest then? I normally don't arrest people initially, like there's a process. What's that process? You want what the process would have been in that situation, or just any? You said there's a process when a person is found with marijuana. Well, normally you have to have a confirmation from a criminal lab. Okay, that tells us just what it is. So walk me through the process. We find 2,000 grams of marijuana on this desk. What's the process? So I would have seized that. I would have brought that person in. I would have interviewed them. I would have got their statement. I would have kicked them loose. I would have submitted the possible drugs to the crime lab. Once I got the results back, I would have forwarded the case to the prosecutor's office, and then they would decide if they indict or not. Okay, does that happen in every case? The majority of cases, yes. Not every case. And what I think is crazy here is there was some decriminalization, but, like, recreational weed wasn't allowed yet at this point in 2022 in Ohio. So I don't know if we're just, like, blurring what we do now and using it as, like, an umbrella for what we didn't do when we saw this weed in Tasha Chamblin's house in August of 2022. So David Osborne says, okay, does that happen in every case? The majority of cases, yes. Not every case. So does that policy only apply to marijuana? No, really, it's kind of like an officer's discretion. What do you mean? So somebody had 2,000 grams of weed, I'm not going to put them in jail on a felony. I'd wait until I got the lab results back. If somebody had 2,000 grams of methamphetamine, then I'm going to put them in jail. Even though you don't have confirmation on what it is? Well, I can field test, but there's still a difference in marijuana and methamphetamine. Like I say, every investigation, every confidential informant, every bit of information that's solicited is all on a case-by-case basis once it's a circumstance. And there to me is what I think is the tricky little detail. Well, the reason we didn't arrest this individual in 2022, finding 2,000 grams of weed in her apartment, is because we already viewed her as a confidential informant, and that was part of our discretion. That was part of my discretion. That's what I'm thinking. So Osborne says, okay, you mentioned field testing. So you can only field test narcotics? Well, that's what the field tests are for, is narcotics. Would you like a glass of water or anything? I'm good, thank you. So the field tests are only for narcotics? That's their purpose, is to be able to conduct a preliminary test of a suspected illegal substance in the field. Okay, so who conducted the field test on the marijuana? I did. How did you do that? I take a small sample. You put it in a clear plastic pouch, and there's 2, sometimes 3 ampules, depending on the test. You break each ampule, you agitate it a little bit, and then there's a color change. If there's a color change that matches the color on the packet, then that means it showed a positive result for the chemicals tested in those substances. If it doesn't, then it lets you know that it's not that substance. Are these a one-size-fits-all test? So each illegal substance has their own set of chemicals that are used to field test. So there's a test for marijuana, there's a test for methamphetamines, there's a test for opiates, there's a test for every other street drug. So how specific is a test for marijuana? I can't answer that. Well, surely you know that hemp and marijuana is the same plant. Yes. How does it differentiate? It doesn't differentiate. That's the reason for the crime lab. It doesn't differentiate the concentrate of THC versus sativa, just to let you know that there's a presumptive positive test for THC. But it can't tell the difference in the plants? Correct. And that is another common reason why somebody with marijuana is not always arrested and put in jail. Not always arrested? Yeah. Why do you say not always? Implying that usually they are, but not always. Well, that's just a term that I used. It doesn't mean anything specific. I'm talking law enforcement broadly. Okay, so she drives herself back to the police station here. What happens next? I put her into the interview room and conduct an interview with her. Okay, a recording? Yes, well, I thought it was recording. So the recording equipment that is set up at the sheriff's office at that time was kind of old and obsolete. There was a specific system that was outside that had wires ran through into the interview room that... Can you ask your client to please stop antagonizing me? What? Oh my goodness. Mr. Foreman says, no, I'm just listening to him, sir. What are we doing? Oh my God, Brian Newland. So he's saying that, there's a specific system that was outside that had wires ran through into the interview room that... Can you ask your client to please stop antagonizing me? No, I'm just listening to him, sir. So Nuland continues. So there's a microphone on the table, and if that microphone is touched at all, sometimes it will disconnect the sound. So there's a sign on the table that says, do not touch the microphone. Do not touch the microphone. So at some point in time, it must have gotten messed up prior to us going in there. Prior to us going in there. We didn't touch it. So we conducted the interview. So wouldn't you check before, it might be one thing if it cuts out in the middle of the interview, but why wouldn't you check that it was recording before you go in and sit down? It's like he's so steered towards trying to say, we didn't mess it up. We didn't make a mistake. That he's pointing to a mistake that somebody else would have made that should have been checked for before the interview started. So he says, so we conducted the interview. I come out. She's still in there. And before we release her, I go through and I start working on the search warrant. Yeah, so you're not sure. You keep her sitting there. So in his mind, contemporaneously, he thinks he's got everything, he's working on the warrant, but he doesn't say, hey, go home. That's also an interesting detail. So he said he starts preparing this warrant, and my practice was I start on the search warrant, and then I would go and listen to the interview, so I made sure all of my information was updated and accurate as I worked through the search warrant. Well, I got to a point where I had to do that, and then realized that there was a video recording, but there was no audio. So there was like a 45-minute interview that had no audio. So I explained to Deputy Cooley and Deputy Estep what was said in my interview, and asked them if they could just re-go over this stuff and re-obtain information because the system had to be restarted in order to work again to capture that audio video. And when I asked them while I worked on the search warrant, based off of what she told me during my one-on-one interview with her, I worked on the search warrant and asked them if you guys could just go back in and try to get another statement from her. Ask these specific questions so I have those answers, and then we'll go from there. So they did all that while I worked on the interview, or, I'm sorry, worked on the search warrant. Okay, so your interview with the confidential informant was 45 minutes in length. I don't know for sure, I'm just using that as an example. It was more lengthier interview than what the second interview was. How long was the second interview then? I don't recall. Just that it was longer? The first interview was longer than the second interview. Okay, obviously you mentioned you're working on the search warrant. Are you working from memory, or did you take notes of what she was saying? Yeah, I took notes. Where are those notes today? Those would have, I can't say where they're at right now. Where should they be? They should be in wherever, when I left the sheriff's office, where all of my old files were stored at, they should be in there. Are those files active investigations? There are some active investigations concerning your client, yeah. So I guess I should dig into that. So you're saying there's active investigations right now concerning Joseph Foreman? When I left the sheriff's office, there was investigations involving the Ohio, BCI, and the FBI. Whether those investigations are still active at this time, I have not had any doings with them. Okay, so then you know of no reason why the other officers have said there's no active ones. Why would there still be an active one? Because they were not assigned to detectives or investigations. They would have had no knowledge of it. So you realize why I'm asking? I don't. Don't you think it would be an issue to have an active investigation going while also having a civil case going over that subject? I mean, I'm not for sure how the civil and criminal works, but those investigations were completely separate from what these depositions are from. Now, you should know better. You just called Afroman out. You said he's antagonizing you sitting there. And now you're trying to spit that he's still under investigation by the feds? And that you just have some knowledge of it that this department doesn't have? And yet this lawsuit, nobody's asked to put a stay on this litigation. This litigation was initiated in 2023, and not once has there been a request to stay this because of a criminal investigation. He says, okay, so then the file in reference that there's these notes would be and then is closed. There's nothing else on it. That pertains to the search warrant? Yes. Yeah, this case is closed. There was nothing further. I'm talking about separate investigations. Okay. So would there be any reason why, if I requested those notes in a public records request, they wouldn't provide them? Not to my knowledge. So what kind of stuff did you put in those notes? And this is the same guy that says he doesn't have any idea what type of legal trouble his brother got into at a neighboring department. But you're not even at this department anymore, and you supposedly know more than the other officers about ongoing investigations into a resident of Adams County. He said, I don't recall right offhand what they consisted of, his notes, but I would have jotted notes down with what she told me. Okay, so you've got your notes. You're sitting there at the computer typing up the search warrant, and you asked Mike Estep and Shawn Cooley to go in and ask certain questions. What kind of questions did you have them ask? I don't recall right offhand what I had them ask. Okay, so they went in and asked those questions. Did they write down answers? I don't believe they did. Well, then how did you get an answer to those questions? Because it was an audio-video recorded. I reviewed the second interview as well. Okay, so was there anything conflicting in your mind? No. Okay, and so all of the answers were consistent with what you'd heard the first time? Yes. And those consistent answers are contained in the search warrant? Yes. So then they pull out the Exhibit 8. All right, let's review this in front of you. All right. Are you familiar with that document? Yes. Is that a copy of the search warrant? Yes. That you executed? Yes. Was that typed by you? Yes. So what did the confidential informant tell you that you wanted to look at for Mr. Foreman's residence? Well, during our interview... Wait, back up. What do you mean our interview? My interview with her. Your first interview? My first interview with her. Okay. First off, there was an unknown amount of marijuana during my conversation. We just started off with the details of the residency. I wanted to verify that she had knowledge of the residence, what the insides looked like, described it to me, how to get there, the setup of it, everything else. Once I was confirmed that, I thought that there was some merit to what she was saying, some merit. So we went into talking about, one of the things we talked about was her and her husband building that fake wall, or the false, the openings in between the fake walls inside of the fitness room. She explained to me that they built that. Mr. Foreman asked her and her husband to build those specifically with the fake walls. She stated that there's marijuana commonly stored in there. Another thing we talked about was the female. I don't recall her name right offhand, but that Mr. Foreman paid her husband and another gentleman an amount of money to drive down to Mississippi or Oklahoma to pick this woman and bring her back, and that at the times when she was at the residence, Mr. Foreman would lock them in what's called the dungeon, and that there had been more than one female that had been locked in the dungeon at some point in time, but that this female in question was the last one that she knew to be locked in the dungeon. Now, what's interesting about that, he's talking about his first interview, which is supposed to be longer. His search warrant's only based off what he says he can get out of the second interview, but yet nothing he says here is something that's not contained in this 1.5-page search warrant affidavit. So it's almost like he's just reciting what is in the affidavit. Right, he's not going into anything further that was discussed during that 45 minutes. And so when was the last time she saw that? I don't recall exactly when she said the last time was. That part's in the affidavit. He doesn't volunteer that. Over a month ago? No, I don't think it was over. It had been over a month. Had it been less than a month? I don't recall the exact term that she used, but I don't believe it was more than... I don't think she said within a month or over a month. I don't recall that right offhand. Okay, did she tell you the last time she went to Mr. Foreman's residence? Yeah, she said that it was within the month. I just recall that exact term that was used. I just recall what the exact term that was used was. Okay. Well, that would be contained in the notes? Yes. And is that one of the questions you have Mr. Cooley and Mr. Estep ask her? I don't recall. Okay, so you mentioned that you had her describe the residence so that you could determine if there was any merit. Yeah. How did you verify that? You said you verified it. I've been in the residence. Before this? Correct. Okay. On what reason? I was assigned to the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. At the time that I was there, Mr. Foreman's brother-in-law was wanted for raping a mentally disabled woman. Okay. And so you went into the residence and went through it? We went into residence and made contact. We actually spoke with Mr. Foreman at the residence next door. I don't recall. He was there with his wife and children. And I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but that led us to check the other property. We went over there and there was 3 or 4 different men inside of there that let us come in, and some of the guys on the task force went in and cleared the residence and made sure that the suspect was not there, and then we left. And so you guys searched the house? Correct. How long prior to August 21st, 2022 is that? I can't say exactly how long it was. Years? Maybe a year, maybe the prior year, 2 years prior. But less than 3? Maybe, I'm not sure. But definitely since you joined the police force. Yeah, I joined the Marshal Service I think in 2019, maybe 2020, so it would have been some time after that. Sometime between 2019 and 2020? Yes. What did you do for the U.S. Marshal Service? I was a task force member assigned to a fugitive apprehension team. Okay, and what area did that cover? Southern District of Ohio. So anything in Franklin County down? Yes. And how does that work, being a member of the U.S. Marshal Service and a police officer? Explain that to me. So the task forces consisted of state and local agencies that will allow officers to be sworn in as a special deputy U.S. Marshal. And while performing these operations, you're a special deputy U.S. Marshal. So you and the whole purpose of the task force is to serve as state, local, and federal warrants within the jurisdiction that cover that. It usually consists of like violent felonies or violent crimes, sexual offenses, stuff like that. So essentially it's deputizing local law enforcement to assist with their federal investigation. So rather than transporting about 20 U.S. Marshals to apprehend someone, they take one and then local law enforcement. Correct. But I take it that's something you have to volunteer for? You have to volunteer for and be selected, yes. Okay, so it's not just any law enforcement, it's very specific people. Yeah, So the way that it works is 2, 3, or 4 officers that are in good standing, have no disciplinary issues, will volunteer for the position. Once the sheriff approves it, then there's information that goes up to the Marshal's Service, and then they will have a representative come down and swear you in as a special deputy U.S. Marshal. And then the team runs operations like throughout the week. So they may be in Adams County Monday, they may be in Brown County on Tuesday serving warrants, they may be in Jackson County on Wednesday. It just depends on what the warrants that they are investigating. So I'm going to go back to the interview with the confidential informant. So when you were asking descriptions of the house, you were verifying it against your memory? Yes. And nothing else? Correct. This may sound stupid because I imagine you haven't been in every house a confidential informant talks about. Correct. But if you hadn't been in the house before, how would you verify their story? So I ask questions based off of my knowledge prior to. So if I have prior knowledge that, this person drives a blue Chevy car with black rims, I might ask them, well, what do they drive when they go? And if they tell me a blue Chevy car with black rims, that just goes towards their credibility. Well, and I'll use it as a small example. Okay, well, I would like to explore an example on that. So what if you had never been in the residence the person is talking about, and they couldn't tell you what car they drove? What would you do from there? None of that plays a part in my investigation. That's just for me to, and even if I've never been there, I still may, tell me what the house is like, tell me what the setup is like. That's just, sometimes I ask those questions, sometimes I don't, depending on what the case is, what the situation is. I guess I don't really understand the question. How do you verify that the person has merit? You said that her description had merit, and you told us how you verified hers because you were in the residence previously. Correct. And so you could compare it? So if you haven't been in the residence, how do you determine if they have merit? I may ask different questions. There's just, like I said, it's all case-by-case basis. Sometimes you don't. I may ask them, well, what's their phone number? Or what do they go by? What's their nickname? Who's normally in there? That's just a little bit. It does not go toward the search warrant or toward the investigation. It's just information that I'm soliciting from them to see if they know what they're talking about, if that makes sense. Okay. So for instance, if I ask her, well, describe the kitchen for me, and it's just some crazy off the wall, it's not even remotely close to what I already know, then that just tells me that, well, maybe this person don't know what they're talking about. It's just a tool, so to speak, that's used. Does it go to help show reliability and truthfulness? Yes. So she verifies the inside of the house, and you determine she's reliable. What do you talk about next? That's when we start a conversation about her describing the false walls and talking about marijuana. She told me that Mr. Foreman had rented a couple of storage units in her name and her husband's name, and that he had stored a large amount of marijuana in them. That's the marijuana that she had at her house, come from one of those storage units that he had rented. And then from there we went into, I want to stop you there for a second if you don't mind. You mentioned storage units. Where were these storage units located? I don't recall exactly. I know they were not inside Adams County. I don't recall exactly where she said they were. I believe Highlands County. It was not, I'll follow it up by, I believe the Brown County Drug Task Force did some investigation. I'm not sure where that led to, if it led to anywhere. So you turned that information over to another agency? Correct. What agency? I believe it was the Brown County Drug Task Force. Well, if they're in Highland County, why would you... So they work in Brown, they work in Highland. If you schedule it with the Brown County Drug Task Force, they were working some kind of investigation with some people in Brown County that were kind of connected somehow. I don't recall what the specifics were. Where they had maybe done something similar to storage units in Mount Orab, or I don't recall. There was so much information, it's been so long, I really don't recall. This would be detailed in your notes though? It should be, yes. So we could take a look at your notes to refresh and answer those questions. As far as something about storage units, I'm sure. I don't think that I would have wrote on my notes, I'm going to forward this information to Brown County Drug Task Force or Highland County I don't think I would have wrote that in my notes. Wouldn't you have wrote down a reminder to make sure they got it and that they don't miss it in the spam folder? No, that doesn't make sense for me to even do that. Well, how do you forward information to them? Well, if I know somebody that's working on the drug task force, and 9 times out of 10, I would call them and say, hey, I've got this kind of information. This is what I was told. Who was your contact on the Brown County Drug Task Force? At that time, it would have been Justin Conley. Does Justin Conley still work there? I have no idea. You lost touch after going to Cincy? Yes. I'm not even saying that's who I talked to. I don't remember. I don't remember the details. Okay, so she tells you about these storage units. It's not in Adams County. What else? Well, and then after we talked about the marijuana and the false rooms, she's talking about this woman, and I cannot think of her name for the life of me, that she thought that she was brought against her will, that Mr. Foreman had paid her husband and another gentleman, I think $5,000, to drive down to Mississippi and bring this woman back. And it was kind of like some woman that he kept around the house. I don't recall exactly what she said, but that at one point in time, she'd been up there and that she had seen this woman being kept, and this woman was just in the dungeon is what she said. And that at any time that these females disobeyed, females, plural, disobeyed or made him angry, they were locked in the dungeon. What do you mean by one point in time? She was, that again is just a term I use. She was there at some point in time, prior to me talking with her, that she was there and she observed these females being kept in what she described as the dungeon, or what she referred to as a dungeon. Did she describe the dungeon? Yeah, she stated that it was 2 rooms. She said it was kind of like a basement, but you go down like this, kind of like a basement. Kind of like a basement. You go down the hallway and it was kind of like a basement again, and there was 2 rooms. Kind of like a basement or a basement? She said kind of like a basement. Okay, and so you wrote in your search warrant, kind of like a basement. I don't recall what I wrote in the search warrant. Okay, and maybe she used the word basement. Like I said, I don't recall exactly the terms that were used in our conversation. Like I said, it's been 3 years ago. Well, you'd been in the house previously, correct? Yes. So you knew the layout, correct? For the most part, yes. I remember like the layout of the kitchen area. So when I went there with the Marshal Service, I was in the kitchen area. And I just knew that, so I went from the kitchen area into the living room and seen that there were no steps. So when I asked her questions about the description of the residence, I asked her, describe like the setup of the kitchen, the color of the walls. Because they were very specific, the color of the floor, what's in the kitchen, where the bedroom is located. And then that was stuff that I could verify. I think he told her, he has like this giant bedroom upstairs, his stuff. Like, I don't doubt that this woman's been in the house before. But he could have corralled her if he knew this information. Like, oh, well, can you say that there's, you walk into the kitchen and then it looks like this? And then I had her continue describing the house for me. Like, where the garage was, where the fitness room was, where the false walls were. Something that I didn't have any knowledge of, but I just had her continue describing it to me. Well, you just said you could verify the bedrooms. Did you see the bedrooms when you were with the U.S. Marshal Service? I didn't say I could verify the bedrooms. Okay, so you could only verify then that there was an upstairs. I could verify there was a second story. There was a set of stairs off of the living room that went upstairs. I could verify what the kitchen setup was, like the colors of the walls. They were very specific. The color of the tiles, the cabinets, stuff that I could verify from being there on a previous occasion. And then she continued to give me a description of the residence. Okay, and you took down notes on it? Yes. I imagine you probably made a drawing of this? I did not. Wouldn't a drawing of all this have been useful for planning the entry of the residence? I didn't feel a need to make a drawing of it. I've never made a drawing of a residence to make entry or conduct an operation. Well, how do you plan an operation then? 9 times out of 10, you don't know the setup of the residence. So we use the information that we know. Hey, it's a 2-story. Hey, there's a front door, there's a back door, and then the perimeter. We're going to make entry through the front door, When we get in there, there's a stairway. I've never known the exact setup of a house going on. You keep describing it as a 2-story, and she says basement. Is it 2 or 3 stories? I described it, again, these are just terms that I'm using while speaking. I described it as a 2-story because it has the primary floor that you walk in, where there's a kitchen and the living room is. And then there's a stairway that leads to a second floor. So you don't know if there's a basement or not. At that point in time, no. When did you become aware that there was a basement? When you think of a basement, there was no basement. Like a common knowledge of what a basement is to most people, there wasn't a basement in the residence. Okay, when did you learn that? Once we made entry during the search warrant. Okay, so she tells you all of this stuff. You write down notes where everything is. What happens next? So from there, once we're done with the search interview, with the interview and stuff, and I get the search warrant signed, or get the search warrant typed up, as I mentioned prior, I had some deputies proofread it just to make sure it made sense, that there was no errors that jumped out, not just spelling mistakes. I contacted David Kelly, who was the prosecutor at the time. I met him at his house. We reviewed the search warrant. I went over some of the details with him. He said that it was good. From that point, I went to Judge Gabbard to have the search warrant signed, and then back to the office. So did Roy ask you any questions? Yeah, he always asks, like, what's to be searched and what were we searching for? Okay. And he read the search warrant before signing it, and he again said, so this is stuff, the stuff that he always says. So this is a house. I explained that we don't think that there's going to be any kids there. We don't know, and just the basic stuff. David Osborne says, I've never got a search warrant from Roy, so could you just tell me what the basic stuff is? So we're going to do a search warrant here. This is a little bit of information that we were told. It's a single family home, detached buildings, just whatever. A quick rundown while he was kind of reading it to give him like the verbal brief while he's reading through it. So this guy's reading it and you're talking to him while he's reading. Is this judge really taking this in? So you're sort of recapping what the CI told you. Correct, just briefly. Now I know this may sound stupid because you've kind of explained before. Was a CI packet completed for the confidential informant in this case? Yes. So the packet is completed when you sign them up as completing the packet is what we referred to as signing them up, the confidential informant. So she was signed up as a confidential informant? Yes. So you said previously, before that, if you do a confidential informant, they're usually signed up to do more than one case. Correct. Sometimes yes. So what was she signed up for? I just had signed her up for... I didn't know at that point. Because I just signed her up as a confidential informant because she was providing this information and that we were going to be using it in a search warrant. So I went ahead and signed her up as a confidential informant, and then we went from there. Now, I had no idea or no way of knowing if she would have worked for doing more cases or this case, or maybe it didn't even work out at all. There was no way for me to determine that. But she was given a number? Yes. And I take it that number is not confidential informant number 1? No, so that's just the way I word my search warrants. So just because there was only one. Say there was only one informant in this, so I just labeled her as confidential informant 1 instead of a long number. So if there had been 2 or 3, they would each have got 1, 2, and 3. Correct. So the number has nothing to do with that. Correct. So you complete the packet, and she signs, and you go through her criminal background and everything as part of the packet. And she knows what she can and can't do. Correct. Was there any, as obviously 2,000 grams of marijuana or alleged marijuana was found in her residence, was there any discussion with David Kelly about a lenience on her sentence or not prosecuting? No, not that I can recall. Was anything ever done in relation to that marijuana? No. Why not? I have no idea. So, you don't talk to David Kelly about this, but you don't know if anything was done, but you're called in to handle this investigation, so it seemed like the lost in translation starts with Brian Newland. So David Osborne says, well, you were there for well over a year after that. I imagine BCI tested charges... Oh, wrong page. I imagine BCI tested it before a year. Yeah, it was sent to be tested, and then at some point in time, I received a notice from the prosecutor's office that the case wasn't going to be prosecuted. Was going to be prosecuted? Was not going to be prosecuted. There wasn't an explanation. Who was the prosecutor when that decision was made? The actual county prosecutor was David Kelly. So that came back before David Kelly resigned? I believe so. This may sound stupid, but when I asked you about the thing, you said when you get back the stuff, you present the case to the prosecutor. So explain this to me. How did they tell you it's not going to be prosecuted if you didn't present it to them? Yeah, so is this like a want of prosecution? They didn't have something to go on? Because the police never forwarded them the test results? What's going on here? So whenever, I'm not talking about just her case. So the whole criminal cases that stem from the search warrant. What I mean, the charges, the criminal charges against your client at the time, I think all of it, the way I take it, what are we doing? The whole criminal cases that stem from this search warrant. What I mean, the charges, the criminal charges against your client at the time. He wasn't arrested. And clearly there was no, like, he says, the way I take it, it was just going to be disposed of, and that was going to be the end of it. Is he conflating what happened with Foreman's charges and he's trying to blanket the confidential informant under that? So David Osborne says, what do you mean criminal charges against Mr. Foreman? Well, from the marijuana and the drug paraphernalia that come from his residence. Well, do you often do search warrants for minor misdemeanor amounts of marijuana? No, not for minor misdemeanor amounts, no. The search warrant stated we had a possibility of an unknown quantity of marijuana and the possibility of someone that was being held against their will. We had to act. Regardless, we had a complaint to investigate and a duty to act on. This wasn't really a voluntary complaint, though. You go to this woman's house because of a tip from somebody else that she has this marijuana. She shows you this marijuana. You pretend that you're there to talk to her because she's the victim in an attempted arson. Even though that's like so far off the table, you don't seem to actually care about that. And then somehow, even though she has the 2,131 grams of marijuana, and you only find like residue in a joint at Afroman's house, you're here trying to represent in this deposition that all of these charges against your client, while it's lost on you that you do nothing with this 2,000 grams of marijuana. There's a lot in these 3 little pages. That's a lot. So, let's see. He says we had a complaint. It's our duty. We had a duty to act on it. Osborne says, so is your duty to act on it? A potential kidnapping or somebody held against their will? Absolutely. Meanwhile, on the body cam, when you watch it, he's asked more than once what they're looking for, and he never mentions this kidnapping. When he's talking to Angela, he's just like, oh, narcotics. We're looking for narcotics. But yet, now that he wants to be self-righteous, this is what he leans on. He doesn't even mention the narcotics in this answer. He goes straight to the kidnapping, somebody being held against their will. So Osborne says, even though you don't know exactly how long it had been since she saw that person there, yes. Did you take any other steps to verify? There was no other steps that I could take to verify it. Not going to drive by and do a knock and talk? Not at that point, no. Why not? We just didn't. We do, and he keeps saying we, and it's him. It's his call. He's preparing the search warrant. He's treating the other 2 like lackeys. The other 2 are like, can you come into work today? This lady says that Afroman has weed. Like, and it's we. He knows this is sus, and now it's we. So we did do a drive-by. He said we just didn't. We do actually. I take that. We did do a drive-by prior to. Nobody. We didn't do a knock and talk. There was nobody seen outside. No vehicles seen in the driveway. No lights on? It was daytime. I don't recall. It was evening. Huh? It was evening. When we did the drive-by, it was daytime. Oh yeah, what time did you do the drive-by? It was prior to serving the search warrant, but it was definitely daytime. Was it prior to getting the search warrant or after? It was prior to. So it was prior to 4 o'clock? Yeah, it would have been prior to, probably prior to 4, yeah. Most likely it would have been prior to 4. I just know for sure it was daylight out. Was it prior to talking with the CI? It was after. So after your interview? Yes, it was actually, so this is all happening since 1 o'clock. He gets called in to work at 1 o'clock. By 6:55 p.m., the judge has signed off on the warrant. He's saying that his first interview is 45 minutes long. He starts typing up the search warrant before he tries to start reviewing the video, realizing there's no audio at all in this 45-minute long clip. and then goes and asks people, hey, let me brief you on all these questions. I need you to go back in there and ask. So this is all supposed to be happening in 5 hours and 55 minutes. And did he say he went and talked to David Kelly in person? I'm sure, maybe they don't live that far away, but let's see. David Kelly. Who was that part? Okay, he just says I met him at the house. So he goes to David Kelly's house, all in this day. All in the same day. All of this is supposed to happen. How? How? So he's saying that they do this drive-by after your interview. And he's saying we. So right now I'm going to assume that he's also going along for the ride, which takes up his time. So we talked to her at... Okay. Actually, we talked to her at the residence, then did the drive-by, then came back to the sheriff's office where we conducted the interview. So they do the drive-by before the interview. So this location and the informant's residence are maybe a mile apart. Okay, so you talked to her. What did she tell you at the scene that would cause you to drive by that residence? Well, she told me that it was marijuana that she obtained from a storage unit. In Highland County? In Highland or Brown County, that it was rented by him. Like I said, there was no harm if I want to drive 5 miles out of the way. I just decided to do a drive-by of his residence. It's a public road. I drove by, looked over, and kept on driving. I'm trying to see the connection in my head, and I can't get it of why. He just wanted to see if there were any cars in the driveway. Come on. This isn't this whole question, the inception of this question isn't there an alternative for you to go through the lengths of getting this no-knock warrant where you can breach somebody's door? You didn't try to just go talk to somebody knowing that the information from this confidential informant is in relation to something that was over a month ago? Or about a month ago? So he starts trying to say, well, we did go by the residence, as if answering the question on to try to just knock and talk and not go through this whole warrant thing and raid someone's home. But really all he does is drive by while he's on his way home anyway. You see how when you walk back the details, it's in total contrast to what was initially represented? Oh my goodness. So he says, I drove by, looked over, and kept driving. Osborne says, I'm trying to see the connection in my head, and I can't get it, of why a storage unit in either Brown County or Highland County, and her telling you about that, would necessitate driving by a private residence. Because it was on a public roadway. I didn't drive on his property and didn't walk on his property. So are you saying if somebody made an allegation against me, you're just going to drive on my farm and say, hey, he's not home, and go get a search warrant? No. Like I said earlier, it's a different circumstance, and it's the totality of the circumstances surrounding it. What was the totality in your mind, then, that led you to drive by on the public road? Well, first off, there's nothing illegal or wrong with me driving by anybody's residence on a public roadway. I went to this house to investigate a complaint. Whose house? If you really wanted to investigate a complaint, and you see that the house might have a garage, you don't try to knock and ring a doorbell? He says, well, there's nothing illegal. Whose house? I went to Heather Holly Lane to the informant's residence to investigate the information that we had obtained that she had marijuana. During my conversation with her, she provided the information about the storage units and where the marijuana came from and why she's in possession of it. And so when it was agreed upon that she would come to the sheriff's office to speak with us? After leaving the residence and prior to going back to the sheriff's office, I drove by less than 1 mile out of my way, past the residence, and then back to the sheriff's office. There was no rhyme or reason for it. I just did. Okay. Part of my investigation. So again, he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. I just did it, because why not? But I also did this because I was trying to forego having to either abandon or ignore this complaint and or have to take the more serious step to violate somebody's constitutional rights against this type of, very invasive search by trying to vet the claims a little bit more beforehand. But nope, he's got these two diverging explanations of why he drove by this house, didn't actually try to do the things he first tried to say the purpose of this drive-by would be for, and then he goes and runs and gets a search warrant. He says, okay, so when you say no rhyme or reason, you didn't know anything about a possible kidnapping victim while you were at Heather Holly Lane? Correct. But you knew who Mr. Foreman was? Yes. So if I had said Afroman's at that time, you would have known who that is? Yes. Were you a fan of his music? I was not. So you only knew of him from your work in the, what was it again, that agency that they used? No, I mean, everybody knows. I use the term Afroman. Like, everybody knows the music, knows the songs. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't know who he was or listened to prior to. I wasn't a fan of the music, but I knew who he was. This is the same guy that they got that lip syncing video of him singing Lose Yourself. The wannabe Eminem. And then I'm saying the contact that I had with him prior to this was during that operation with the U.S. Marshal Service. So Roy signs a search warrant? Yes. What happens next? After we get the search warrant, myself and Sergeant Estep start making phone calls, trying to get some more guys in to come and assist, because at that time, it was only me, Deputy Shawn Cooley, and Sergeant Mike Estep. There was 2 deputies on duty for the entire county, and then myself that came in. So we made some phone calls to try to get some people to come in and assist. Once they got to the office, just did a quick briefing like, we've got a search warrant for the residence. This is everybody's role. And then we proceeded on to the residence. So, as part of the briefing, I imagine the briefing really had 2 stages. The first one, what are you looking for? And then the second one, how we're going to get in this house. Correct. Okay, and so who assigned positions for the breach? Nobody specifically assigned positions. It was kind of like a collective. So now you have everybody else said, well, the supervisor, we might have talked together, but Brian made all the decisions. So he says it was kind of a collective. Well, hey, I'll do the perimeter. Hey, I'll be on the entry. Hey, I'll grab my rifle. I'll be on the back. It was just kind of a collective agreement. When you say rifle, you're referring to the AR-15s that are in the cruisers? Yes. So, well, I'm just going to ask this plainly. There had to be some boss running this. There's always a boss running it. Who was the boss? I would have been the person you would consider the boss running it. So your word was the one that wins? Yes. So you were the captain of that ship? Yeah. So you told everybody where to go? Klingler objects. And then he answers, I made the final decision, yes. And then Klingler said, I think he just answered that. So you told them what to search for? Correct. And then everybody has their positions? Correct. About how many people was there? 10 people maybe? I don't recall for sure. About 10 or so? Correct. How many people normally go to a search warrant? This is a long answer for this. As many, honestly, as many as you can get involved, because you've got to have people cover the perimeter. You never know. It's inherently dangerous. You never know what you're walking into. You're intentionally going into a house blind. You know who's in there, what they have, how many people's there, how many rooms are there. During an operation, you never enter a room with less than 2 people. You never enter a room by yourself when you're clearing a residence. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing, like, I think this is understandable. I get it. But if there aren't really emergency circumstances, verified emergency circumstances, this is a woman who's saying, like a month ago, I stopped going over there because Afroman published a video depicting himself peeing on me, published it online, so I stopped going over there. Which honestly doesn't seem like her choice. If he's making videos about her, he's probably already shooed her away. And it's not in her control. But this is what they used to represent this woman's word, that before she stopped going over there, she used to see this dungeon. Never felt compelled to talk about it before. But it's so dangerous, we don't have time to prep it. We've got to do it immediately that afternoon. So we're just going to do a casual drive-by, interview this lady, make her sit there while I start to type the warrant to make sure it's good. Go back, send some people in to ask her questions again. Very targeted questions, and then go talk to Mr. Gabbard. Like, if it's really that dangerous, you could have planned this to have the right staffing. So Osborne says, so if you could have got 100 people, you would have took as many as you could get. I wouldn't have taken 100 people in reason, what a reasonable person would expect. Enough that we could have adequately and safely executed the search warrant. Okay, and that was about 10 or so people? Yes. When did you start calling people in? It was, I don't recall when I started making the first phone calls, but it was after the search warrant was signed. So that would be at 6:55 p.m. And there is, if you look at page 1 of Plaintiffs Exhibit 8, there's a time written below Roy's name. Yes. What's that time? 6:55 p.m. Why is that written there? Judge Gabbard always indicates the date and time he signs search warrants. So Roy wrote that? Correct. And so Mike started calling people in also? Yes. I will say, whenever he began calling the people, I don't know. I don't remember the time frame when he started calling people in. Because you know what, you just got caught. I just know I didn't make any phone calls until after the search warrant was signed. Okay, so everybody gets there and they leave from the police station. Correct. And then they go execute the search warrant. What happens next? So we arrive at the residence, get into the driveway, get out. I initially go to the front door, or what I would consider the front door of the residence that faces Russellville Road. Okay. That door was secured and was glass, and it looked like there was a couch like up against the door. You could see that through like the curtain or whatever. I didn't want to break the glass out of the door, and we didn't trying to force entry into it because of that reason. So we went, or by the time I walked around the residence, that was described as the guard shack. The first exterior door was already opened, and they were trying to get into the secondary door that goes from the guard shack into the kitchen. So once entry is made through that door, we proceeded to clear the residence. Half of the guys go towards the right, which would have been like through the kitchen, down the hallway, where the garage and the fitness room and all that is. And then I'd proceed into the room with a group of guys, and then go up and clear. We cleared the living room, a downstairs room, and then upstairs. Once the residence is declared empty or safe, clear from anybody, we come back downstairs and get a game plan together to search. In the meantime, Deputy Phillips, I can't remember if she yells for me or if she radios me that Mr. Foreman's wife, Angela, was there at the residence. So I walk down to the driveway to meet with them. I explained to her, she wants to know what's going on. I explained to her that we've got a search warrant for the residence, and she asked something about like how much damage was done. And I explained to her like the door was taken off. And I specifically asked her, that's the guard shack? She was like, yes, there's a guard shack. That's all on body camera. Well, anyway, I can't remember if it's one child or two children in the vehicle with her. She asked if she can come back. I myself and Deputy Phillips explained to her, take the kids home, and then you can come back if you want. And she also asked if Mr. Foreman was home at the time, and if there was anybody else in the residence. And I explained to her that no, there was nobody there. She leaves, and then I proceed back in, and we begin searching the residence. So I want to unpack that a little bit. So you said it's all on your body camera. Did you have your body cam on? Yes. Was your body cam on during Heather Holly Lane? I didn't have a body cam at that time because I came from home. I was wearing plain clothes. I didn't have my tack vest, which indicates sheriff's office, and my camera's attached to that. So I didn't have any there at the time. I believe Deputy Cooley had a camera on, but again, I can't say for sure. So did you have your body cam on when you were in the police station? No. So there would be no body cam of the interview? There's an audio video recording. So at the sheriff's office, we have one room that's designated for interviews. It has a camera affixed to the ceiling, and then it has a microphone on the desk, and that is all ran through a system in the hallway. So it was all audio. The interview, my interview with the confidential informant was video recorded, but there was no audio because there was an issue with the mic. Once we realized there was an issue with the mic, we had to reset the system, and then the audio started working. And then by that time, that's when I had asked the other deputies to go back in and interview her and get the information again while I'm working the search warrant, to save time. How much time would that have saved? Well, there's no way for me to know. It could take 10 minutes. It could take 45 minutes. It was getting later in the evening, and it was the weekend, and there was information that there could be somebody kidnapped in the house or being held against their will. So then you didn't get your body cam on until you went to execute the search warrant? Correct. Do you know if Mike Estep or Sean Cooley, when they went to talk to her, to the confidential informant, if they had their body cam on? I don't know if they would have activated their body cam, but again, we had confirmed that the audio was working for the recording device in the interview room, so there was audio video that way. What do you mean confirmed? So after we realized that the audio didn't work during my interview, we reset the system and double-checked and confirmed that the audio was working during that time that they conducted before they began conducting the second interview. So they had Mike go in and say, test, test. Yeah, like tap the microphone to make sure they got the noise generator. And then they went in, and then you went back to typing. Correct. Yeah, so you could have checked that before your interview, and you didn't. Correct. So you've secured the house. Obviously no one was there. Correct. No hostages. Correct. No kidnap victims. Correct. So you come back down. Where do you guys huddle together to come up with this game plan to search? I believe it's just outside so once you go out of the kitchen, you go through the guard shack, back out into the driveway where it goes from blacktop to gravel. I think that's where we came up with the plan of how to search. Who was going to search the buildings, who was going to search the garage, who was going to search the upstairs. Do you remember who went to what place? I don't. Do you remember if everybody had on their body cam for this? To the best of my knowledge, yes. As the person in charge, do you make sure that they have their body cam on? No, I do not. Why not? Just because at the time, it's common practice when you're conducting a search warrant to have your body cam activated. That's the policy. I do know that was the policy for body cam activation, unless there's an exception as explained earlier, where they came from home or they don't have it or the battery died or something along those lines. Well, if it's a policy to have, wouldn't you check it to make sure that they don't do something stupid like forget it? Well, I guess I should have, yeah, but like I said, to the best of my knowledge, everybody had their body cam. So you guys are outside at the edge of the blacktop, in the gravel past the gate going in. So where did you search? I don't recall where I started. I know that searching the upstairs, I searched the upstairs, the living room, and then, or I think maybe we actually started upstairs in the bedroom area, and then came down to another bedroom that was off the living room, and then the living room area. Okay, so who was monitoring everything and getting it packaged and everything? So once something was found and it was to be photographed in place and wrote down, and then towards the end, I would come by and package everything up and collect it all before we left. So you packaged it up? Yes. Okay, so do you recall what all evidence was obtained? There was, off of the kitchen, there was a little room that looked like, it was maybe used as a walk-in closet. It had a bunch of hats and shoes. There was a jar that had a large amount of marijuana in it. There's some of what I think was referred to as dab, like THC wax, from the garage. And then there was 1 or 2 sets of digital scales. And then just smaller amounts of marijuana that was collected from around the residence. Did you test the waxy substance? No. Did you test the green leafy substance? No. Well, you're telling me here it's a wax and marijuana. So he had leaned, don't forget, earlier in this deposition, he leans on, well, we did the field test, but we were still waiting on the BCI results for the 2,131 grams found at Tasha Chamblin's home that somebody told us that she had there. And we don't do anything with that. We don't know what happened. But here it's just based off my experience, our ID of this waxy substance and this green vegetation is all we need. So, based off my experience, based off my training and experience as a narcotic detective, it appeared to me to be THC wax, or what's referred to as dab. It had the smell of marijuana emitting from it. I assume based off of my training and experience, that's what it was. The marijuana appeared to be marijuana the way that marijuana is commonly held in residences, the way that it commonly smells. I assume that to be marijuana. Just like the reason I explained it to your client that I had Deputy Walter explain to him, he was not under arrest. He was not going to be placed under arrest. We weren't going to go hunt him down. We just want him to come in and talk to us. The substance that was collected was going to go to the BCI. So the wax would have been sent to BCI along with the mason jar? Correct. And so when we call that marijuana or THC, that we don't really know what it was because it was never tested? Correct. What else was found in the residence? The money that I was accused of stealing and the drugs and paraphernalia. Well, let's talk about the money. How much was found? I don't recall the exact number. Okay, was it all found in one place? Yes. Actually, no, let me think. I believe there was some found in the coat pocket, and I believe some was found in the downstairs bedroom off of the living, like maybe a smaller amount. Does the Adams County Sheriff Department have, or strike that, does the Adams County Sheriff's Office have a policy on what to do when you're taking money as evidence? Not specifically with money, no, at least not that I'm aware of. So what's your policy and practice in regard to money? Count the money and collect it and seal it up and bring it back to the office and put it into evidence. You don't have anybody counter count it? Normally, yes. What we'll do is, so again, like I said several times, it's a case-by-case basis. So during this incident specifically, the plan was to get everything gathered up, put it in a secure place at the sheriff's office, and then, because it was a weekend, when we come back in, then we can go through everything and make sure all documentation was lined up. Everything was scheduled to go to the lab. That's when we would have recounted the money, confirmed it, and everything else. Are you telling me that you guys would take the money to the office, put it in evidence, not even confirming what it is in an evidence bag, and then do it after the weekend's over? No, I'm not telling you that. Okay, then explain it to me. Once the money was found, it was counted. I came up with a number then. You counted it personally? Yes, I counted the money. And then what happened next? Who counted it besides you to check it? Nobody yet. That's not normal, is it? It all depends on the situation and who's available and what's going on. Like I said, so when I was counting the money, everybody else had another job. The money was placed in an evidence bag. It was brought downstairs to a counter. I asked Lemon Pound Cake to keep an eye on it while I continued searching. That way, the money wasn't left up in a bag, and it was brought down on the counter and left. If Deputy Cooley is standing in the kitchen and he's going to watch this, why didn't you have him count it in front of you as a double check? Because that would be his job? And Nuland says, I just didn't do it. I brought the money down and asked him to keep an eye on it and went back to continue searching. So you went back to searching. What else did you find? Well, the items that were listed that I explained already, the marijuana, the suspected marijuana, the digital, the drug paraphernalia, digital scales, and then the THC oil or bong, whatever it was. So Shawn Cooley is watching the evidence bag of money. Uh-huh. It's sealed, I take it? It was not sealed at the time, no. Why not? I didn't have any way to seal it. Like, the bags aren't peel and stick. It's just an open bag. There was no way to seal it. Is that standard practice? That's how all of our evidence bags are. Doesn't that mean anybody could get it and tamper with it? Yeah, but when you're in a room full of law enforcement, then I feel like that's a less likely option. Is it though? Is it really though? So when is the evidence bag sealed? You would hope. Okay, I think I snagged my microphone. Should be back. So when is the evidence bag sealed? Once, if we're capable of sealing it, we'll seal it. Are you capable? If it's not, then it will be sealed at the office. And who's available? Oh wait, wrong page. So when it's taken straight back to the office, if you didn't have the tape, you'd tape it the first thing? Correct. So what happened next in the search? After conducting the search and taking photographs and stuff, Mr. Foreman's wife came to the residence. She wanted to know if she could be in there. I believe at that time she actually had him on the phone. I said, yeah, that was fine. She decided to stay, at the kitchen table, whatever. And again, I believe she had him on the phone at the time. And once we got ready to package or unpack, up and leave, we were all in the kitchen. Sergeant Walters explained to Mr. Foreman about what happened and what was going to happen next and stuff. And then we left. Came back. Left the residence. Came back to the sheriff's office and secured everything. Well, I want to unpack this. You say taking photos. Who took the photos? I don't recall who took the photos. Did they take the photos of the evidence in place before being packaged? Yes, when they were found, when the items were found. Did anybody correspond the photos against the evidence to make sure everything was there? Not at the time, no. Did you ever review those photos? No, we'll let the residents know. After the residents? Yes. When? I don't recall. When. Did you review the photos after the money was missing? I reviewed the body cam footage, yes. Was the money counted on the body cam? Yes. On your body cam? Yes. Were you counting aloud on your body cam? Yes. Do you have a copy of this body cam? I personally do not have a copy of the body cam. Is it on file still? Yes. Is there any reason if I did a public records request I wouldn't get a copy of it? No. So you leave the residence, you go back to the police station, you bring all of the evidence in. Yes. What do you do next? The evidence is secured. I just do the basic preliminary stuff to make sure everything is locked up and secured. And then I leave and I go home. Okay, well, I'm going to go back and unpack that. When did you seal the bags? The bags were sealed in the following morning when I came in. Oh my God. What is the point of this? He says, what do you do next? So you leave the residence, you go back to the police station, you bring all the evidence. What do you do next? He says, it's secured. I do the basic preliminary stuff to make sure everything's locked up and secured, and then he goes home. But then somehow we jump, and the bags are just sealed when he comes in the next day, after being asked when he sealed the bags. So he didn't do the thing he just explained that he does. So those bags were left unsealed in a secured office behind 2 secured doors. Yes. Why didn't you seal it? I just didn't. They were, like I said, they were in a secured office. Oh, if I was Afroman, I was sitting in this deposition. You know how he said earlier, tell your client to stop antagonizing me. I would be sitting here. I would have the laser eyes going at this guy. Like, are you really playing with me right now? Whether you did or didn't, I'm still mad at you for handling my money this way. And I really don't trust it. I think you're lying. But even best case scenario, if I think, hey, maybe you're not lying, maybe this is all just one big incompetence kerfuffle, like, I have a problem with that too. Like, man. So he says, why didn't you steal it? I just didn't. They were, like I said, they were in a secured office behind 2 secured doors with an authorized person, to sign. It was late. I was soaking wet from the rain. I got everything in there and made sure everything was locked and secured. Did you, though? And then I left for the night. And then when I came back in the next morning is when I started working on it. Is it standard practice not to secure the evidence or secure the bags? They were secured in a locked office behind 2 other locked doors. Is it common practice not to seal bags up? Initially, yes. Yes, it is. Why is that? Because you don't seal it up until you know for sure. Like, maybe have somebody else count it to make sure you didn't miscount. Like, you're done doing whatever you've got to do with it before it goes into evidence, because then it messes the chain of custody up. If I seal something up and I put it in, but then now I've got to get it out and do this, and then I've got to cut this bag and then rebag it and do this. It's the same even with narcotics. If you run a field test and then you've got to do another test, you've got to repackage it differently. It's just common practice to seal it up. To wait until you do whatever you want to do with it, then you decide to seal it up. All because you're too lazy to fill out a chain of custody report and reseal an envelope. So, former prosecutor attorney David Osborne says, it's not common practice for the officer to cut the seal and then initial it, and then when they seal it back up and note in the chain of custody that they retested it? Yes, it can be, but I'm saying also, in my normal own course of business, Relly did a better job when he was gathering those shell casings with a pen and a Dunkin' Donuts bag than this guy's doing in his course of duties. He's saying, yes, it can be, but I'm saying also, in my normal own course of business, that's the way I did things. Oh my God, please let me watch him testify in a criminal prosecution. He just does what he wants to do. He thinks it's good to leave things unsealed. I had, and also say, only me and the evidence tech had access to it. Oh, good to know. Who's the evidence tech? D. Rosillo. It was also under 24/7 video feed. Behind that locked door was a second locked door that dispatch monitored that hallway. So why wouldn't you seal the money? I mean, it's not like you're going to count it a second time after it's in the bag, right? I was going to count it a second time. Did you count it a second time? No, I did not count it a second time. Why not? Because by that time, I was already informed that it was going to be released and everything else. When were you going to count it? Sometime when I come back in. Were you going to count it before you did the return on the search warrant or after? I was going to do it, but say it. Say the line. You were going to do it, but what? I was going to do it. So I did the initial return, and then if there was a difference, then it would have been notated. So the initial return reflects the amount that was taken that we counted while at the residence. Mr. Osborne, can I get an exhibit sticker, please? And then Brian Newland continues speaking. If there would have been an issue with anything, then it would have been updated. And this is also passive. It's not, if I found an issue with anything, I would have updated it. It's just speaking generally, as if based on his under oath deposition testimony here, there's these imaginary other people that are observing and that they would have been the ones to update it. And since there wasn't, all of these other people might have magically said he did nothing wrong. All because he's speaking passively. So then Mr. Osborne says that Brian took mine yesterday, talking about the stickers. So then they mark Exhibit 12. Can you please take a look at that? Yeah, can you please tell me what Exhibit 12 is? The search warrant return. Completed by you? Yes. What's at the date on it? August 21st at 8:11 p.m. So, same day as the raid. What's at the bottom of the page? The date, is that what you reference? Read the last sentence. Returned, sworn to, and subscribed in my presence on the 23rd day of August. So 2 days. So you completed that on August 23rd? That was when the search warrant was filed. I completed the search warrant on the 21st. Nothing else done to it. Like I said, it was a weekend on the 21st, and then on the 23rd was when I filed the search warrant return. That's why it's dated for the 23rd. So the timeline's kind of strange here. So you said you came in the next day, and you were going to count the money, but you already knew it was released? Well, before I got the opportunity to count the money was when I was told it was going to be released. I don't recall exactly when I was told. Like I said, it's been 3 years. I don't recall if it was 8 on Monday, 9 on Tuesday. Just before I got the opportunity to recount everything is when I was told it was being released. So you weren't going to count it on the 22nd, which would be the next day after the 21st? I don't recall if the 21st was a Saturday or a Sunday, and then the 23rd was a Monday or Tuesday. I'd have to look at a calendar to see. Again, it's been 3 years. The money would have been recounted at some point, yes. By who? He's just saying again, this passive voice. The money would have been recounted at some point, yes. Well, you said you didn't recount it. We just read that. I was going to count it a second time. Did you count it a second time? No, I didn't count it a second time. Like what? Well, it would have been recounted. Would have been? Yes. But for what? It was being released, so it wouldn't... So you hadn't recounted it? I hadn't recounted it prior to it being released. No. So the second time that it got recounted was when the evidence tech released it to Mr. Foreman. And that's not normal? I'm not saying that is or isn't normal. Different things happen based on different circumstances. Like, I'm not saying that is or isn't normal. I'm having a hard time... Okay, let me give you a hypothetical to illustrate where I'm going. No, I get it. You're trying to make me seem like I'm doing something shady. Okay, Slim Shady, that's who you wanted to be. You were lip-syncing his song. And it's irritating me because I'm not. But you're trying to trip me up somehow when I'm trying to explain to you the course of what happened. So in a hypothetical, and I'm going to give you, if you had a return on a search warrant and the entire case revolved around money, the entire case didn't revolve around money. So in that case, if it revolved solely around money, how would it have been handled? If it revolved solely around money, the money would have been counted. It would have been counted a second time before booked in, before sealed up and booked into evidence and everything else. That's all I needed to know. So you come in the next day, you're doing some paperwork. What did you do then? I don't recall. I assume I worked on this case, but again, at that time, I'm the only detective in Adams County, so I'm probably working 4 or 5 different cases at once. I can't speak to what I was doing exactly. Was Sam still part of the force at that time? He was, but wasn't even, I don't think he was in Adams County at the time. I think he was on vacation. And so obviously you gave the return on the search warrant on the 23rd. Is that required to do the search warrant return? Yes. Within 3 business days, yeah. So you had until the 24th to do it. Correct. Were you there when they returned the money to Mr. Foreman? I was not. But you learned about they were going to return the money sometime around the 24th is when you learned that. Sometime prior to it being returned, Dee Rosillo told me that it was going to be returned. I don't recall exactly when it was. Did she tell you how she knew that? No, she didn't. Would she be the correct person to ask that question? Yes. Does she still work in the sheriff's office? Yes. After she told you about the money that was going to be returned, did that change what you were doing in this case, any at all? No, I mean, it's not uncommon for the prosecutor's office to release the money, especially if it doesn't meet, like, a certain, like, I'm trying to think of the word, like, if it doesn't justify the means, so to speak. Like, if it's a smaller amount, like, if it's, say, for example, say I arrest a guy for 5 grams of meth, and he happens to have $60 on him, and we seize that money, like, they're going to release, I don't know why the prosecutor's office made the decision that they did. They didn't keep me in the loop before making the decision. I don't know. I'm just going to ask. You probably don't know the answer, but if you're the detective working on the case, why would they make that decision without contacting you? Again, that's going to be a question for them. And for who? For the prosecutor's office. Who would I ask there? I don't know. David Kelly or Chris Blanton were the 2 that were, at the time, that would have been involved with it. Did you ever talk to Chris Blanton with this case? Yeah, about the case overall, yeah. Well, when? When did you talk to him? Was that before or after the money was released? Well, I'm sorry, did you say Chris Blanton? Yes. It would have been after. So the only person you talked to before the money is released was the prosecutor, David Kelly? Correct. How long between the time you gave the search warrant return to the court on the 23rd to when the money was released? I don't even recall exactly when the money was released. Do you recall when the file on the case was closed? I don't. Was it after a long time or a short time? It wasn't immediately after, but it wasn't like a long time after either. So, what would be like a long time? Within 6 months, I would. So, it took 6 months or less to close everything? That's just a guess. To be completely closed, done and over with, maybe not even that. Like I said, that's just my best guess. That's why I said 6 months or less. Yes, 6 months, less than 6 months. Did you ever have any other interactions with the confidential informant on any other cases? No. Did you ever use her on any other cases? No. Based on your search warrant of the residence, did you determine that she was unreliable? No. Why not? I mean, was some things off? Yeah. Were some things not? But that's the nature of investigations. It's the nature of drug work. Like, what's there today might be gone tomorrow. I mean, it's not out of the ordinary. This guy's dancing around the elephant in the room. He's trying to ask you, did you notice there wasn't a basement? There wasn't actually a basement. There weren't buckets where people were pissing in. And this guy's like, well, the drugs could have been moved by the time we got there. I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for this guy to have this today, and then by tonight he doesn't have it, or he's got something completely different. There was this female that we was able to identify that was from out of state. There was the 2 rooms off to the side like she explained. There was the false walls in the house. There was the guard shack as she described it, which Mrs. Foreman also described it and did indicate that yes, he does have guards that work in there. Like, there was all this other stuff that was accurate. Just because we had got there too late or too early or anything else does not mean that the informant was not reliable. You said that they were able to verify the identity of the person being held? So you had a full name? Yeah, I believe we did. Again, I don't recall because I don't have it in front of me. If I seen it, then I would know. It was either the first name and we had a full name at some point, but it was still the first name that she provided or something along those lines. So if she only provided the first name, you can't identify the person? Not by off the first name, no. Did she give you a physical description of her? She did, yeah, she did describe her. Was that put in the search warrant? I don't recall. I would have to review the search warrant. Exhibit 8, please. The second paragraph, number 2. Yeah, I see. A short dark-haired woman? Yes. Possibly Hispanic? Yes. Is that a detailed description? That's the detailed description that she gave, yes. So you closed the case. Did you close the case before or after you learned about posts in reference to this? It was closed before, I believe, or maybe around the same time that the post started coming out. I'm not sure. So when did you first learn about the posts? Within a couple days of the search warrant. It wasn't too long after. How did you become aware of this? I came into the office for work one morning, and I believe it was one of the clerks at the front desk asked me to come take a look at something. That was the first time I seen them. Do you remember which clerk it was? I don't. There's only 2 of them. Yeah, I believe it was Cheryl. What was she showing you? I don't recall what the post was. I just know that it was a post of us during the search warrant. Okay, so what other posts did you become aware of? Every post that your client has posted about us, every post where he's called me a pedophile, a thief, I've seen them all hundreds of times. They're all over social media, all over the world. I've had hundreds of people show them to me. Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. So you say you've seen everyone. Have you seen them just because you looked for them or just because people are showing them to you? Both. I've had to, for a time, I deleted my social media because that's all I was seeing. But sometimes I looked, I would check to see, is there a new post about me today? Is there a new post about Lisa today? Is there a new post about Shawn today? Or I'd have people send them to me, oh, did you see Afroman's new post? You know, or somebody would show them to me or send me a text. Oh, there's a new song about you. There's a new post. Like it was every day. There was so much that you can't even think of a specific incidents. Now you mentioned a post about you being a pedophile. Is that the one that has a picture of your family member in it? The one I'm talking about is where I'm at Shop with a Cop. Shop what? Shop with a Cop, where, decent people in Adams County, they get together and donate money. And then, so I'm only there because only decent people go there. Let's back up. What do you mean by decent people? Decent people, good people. They donate money to the sheriff's office. Businesses, they donate to the sheriff's office and other law enforcement. Oh my God, chat. How would you, if you were asked to describe decent people, would this be your go-to description? This is crazy. This is crazy. Like, this whole thing has been some back and forth, mincing of words. I can't say exactly, but now you can give a very specific definition of what makes somebody a decent person. And decent person obviously includes you yourself at this event, where obviously if you go there, you're decent. And decent people love the sheriff's office. He says, we get together and we take kids down to Walmart or whatever and let them pick out Christmas gifts. I had a little boy for one of the years and I took a picture posing with him, holding him, and then that was somehow manipulated into me being a pedophile. Where was that picture taken for you? I don't know if it was somebody from the sheriff's office or the newspaper or who took the picture. Was it put on social media? Yes. Do you know who put it on social media? I don't. So it could have been the newspaper? It could have been, yes. So it could have been the informer who put on their website on Facebook. It could have been, yes. So it was a public image? It was on a public platform, yes. But I think when it was originally posted, it didn't have anything about me being a pedophile or anything along those lines. Well, there's a picture of you with a family member. Tell me about that family member. I don't know which picture you're referring to. Do you have a family member that was in trouble and had a mugshot taken? Yeah, I had a brother. Yeah. I had a brother. Tell me about your brother. What do you want to know about him? Was he criminally charged? He was, yes. Is that still pending? As far as I know. So it wasn't resolved yet at the time of this deposition? Maybe. It only happens with my brother in every year. And McElroy, that's the attorney for the defendants for the countersuit. I'm just going to document the objection. Brian says, I don't understand what that has to do with me. David Osborne says, well, there's a photograph of you and him side by side. Listen, we're all adults here, okay? We know that was not towards my brother. It was toward me based off of everything else. Let's just get down to it. So Osborne says, so that leads me to my next question. You're asking for damages due to reputation. Tell me about how your reputation has suffered. Tell you about how my reputation has suffered? Yes. You have social media, right? Facebook, Instagram. Have you seen a post where I'm called a pedophile, a thief, and everything else under the sun? I mean, that's definitely damaging to anybody's reputation, whether you're a cop or an attorney or a musician, especially when it's not true. Especially when I have 2 teenage daughters, here come the kids, that come home from school. I don't know how many days during those months afterwards crying that kids are saying stuff to them. Or their friends aren't allowed to come to my house anymore because their dad's a pedophile. Or I coach cross country and now kids that I used to coach come to me. Oh, you're a thief. You should be in jail, or you did this or you did that. Or I walked outside to play with my kids and have somebody is driving blaring music from your client. Andrea Burkhart also made a good point about this. Like, if this has taken place over the course, this raid happened in 2022, the post started shortly after. These depositions are 2025. The trial just happened this month in 2026. You know, these girls, if they went from being like age 11 and 14 to 14 and 17, maybe sleepovers just got weird. Maybe they didn't want to do sleepovers anymore. Maybe there's no need to do sleepovers when you can all just be on like FaceTime and group chats together. Like, I don't know. Things changed a lot in 3 years. But anyway, so David Osborne says, so you're saying that you're offended that somebody is driving by playing the song. I'm not offended by somebody playing music. I'm offended because I know what the specific reason is for. It's harassment. It's harassing us. It's all of the death threats that we've had. So now you get called out to specify what's wrong with somebody driving by playing music, and then you go, it's the death threats. The thousands of phone calls and screenshots and everything else. It's where I stopped going to my daughter's volleyball game, because every time you walk in, there's somebody in there. Somebody is saying something to you about it. So, and then David Osborne says, so what's some kind of, give me specific incidents. You keep talking about this cross country. Tell me about the effects on the cross country. And hold on, this is kind of weird because he testified that he was still going to like the cheerleading event for, because he wanted to bring his son to watch his sister. I think that was his testimony. So like, did you stop going and then you started going again? Or did you never really stop going? Did your daughter just say, Dad, don't come here. I don't want you there. And that could have been for any number of reasons. Anyway, so he says he coaches cross country. What school? Manchester, elementary age, little puffs across country. When did you start doing that? When did I start? 2019. Okay. Are you still doing it? No. When did you stop? Around the time that all of this happened. Maybe just shortly beforehand. I'm not saying that this caused me to stop doing it. Maybe just shortly before? When was your brother charged? Okay, so your stopping cross country has nothing to do with this. Yeah, correct. I'm saying that the kids that I coached are all coming up to me and calling me a thief, and I should be in jail and everything else. That was one example. So is it or is it not? Well, can you give me another example? Okay, 2 years ago we're at Meet the Team. That my daughters, everybody's there. 2023? 2023, yeah. When is Meet the Team? Right before school starts during the summer. Meet the Team night is when, like, I don't have any kids in school, so I don't know. So Meet the Team, did you ask me what it is? I'm going to ask you to give me more information because I don't know what it is. So Meet the Team night, there is no set date or time, but it's where the community gets together with the school and everybody that plays like spring sports or everybody that plays fall sports. So they get together and have like a parade and they announce everybody and everything else. So I'm there. Of course, people behind me start talking to me about the situation and calling me a pedophile, asking why I'm there, playing music on their phones and everything else. So I leave for my daughter's event. Like I said, they both play volleyball and cheer. I stopped going to their games for almost a year because every time you walk in someplace, something is being said. There's a comment or a snicker. Everybody's talking about you because they think I'm a pedophile, because they think I'm a thief because of your client's disgraceful videos. It had nothing to do with your brother? No, and I don't understand why you, have some ethics. Mr. Osborne says, can we go off the record? Is he yelling at Osborne for trying to talk about his brother? Like, he seems to know at this point in time in 2025 what his brother was accused of. Anyway, they go off the record, they come back on the record. So other than what we were talking about before we went off the record, is there any reputational harm? I think it's hard for me to put into words, but if you spread every video, every post, every screenshot out on a table, and you look at what you see, and you look at it, you would see what I'm trying to describe. I don't even know how many posts of me in a negative light. That's absolutely not true. And it's affected my reputation with everybody. Like I said, I stopped going to my kids' games for almost a year because of it. I left my job with the sheriff's office, which was my dream job, to go to Hamilton County because of it, just to get out of here. And guess what? You still go down there and still people bring it up. You can't even walk into Walmart without thinking somebody is talking about it, even if they're not. Like, it's a psychological thing. I go, well, they're going to mention it, or they're going to bring it up, or somebody looks at you funny. It's like, well, that's what it's about. You say you left the sheriff's office to go to Hamilton County because of this. Did you take a pay cut? No, I did not. Did you get a pay increase? I did get a pay increase. So you're actually doing better down there? Finally, yeah. But this was my dream job. This is where my family is. This is where I was born and raised. And because of everything that's been said, I can barely stand to live here anymore. So, let alone work here. So I made some calls, figured out who all was hiring, and started applying to some places. I applied at Scioto County, Highland County, all over the place. The place I'm currently at now has reserve, or else I never would have left. So other than losing or leaving your dream job, what other negative impacts has a change of employment had? Well, I guess other than stuff that doesn't even matter with my drive time, stuff like that. So were you forced to leave the sheriff's office? No. Did you ever have well, let me ask you this. Who was the sheriff when you left? Kimmy Rogers. Did you ever talk with Kimmy to see what he could do to help you stay there? There was a conversation almost every day about it, and it was the same thing. Well, just turn the other cheek. It will stop. Don't worry about it. That's what everybody says. How long had Kimmy been an officer? I'm sorry? How long had Kimmy been an officer? How long had Kimmy been? You mean how long had he been a sheriff? A police officer? How long has Kimmy been? Uh-huh. I have no idea. Years and decades, probably. So, he's seen a lot? I assume he has, yes. So if he told you just to turn the other cheek, why wouldn't you have followed it? Well, it's a lot harder to do when you're in an age of social media. You can't wake up in the morning without seeing a video or a post of you or somebody. It's a lot harder than it sounds. Well, there's also claims for emotional distress. What is emotional distress? Emotional distress, I think the deposition earlier of Lisa Phillips explained it perfectly. Like, to look at us. Look at how it affects us all in our daily lives. It completely rearranges your whole your whole psychological way of thinking. Like you get so used to somebody talking so negative about you and the public's opinion, and not even in Adams County, all of Ohio, California, Florida. And then it's now you go in some place, you won't even go into an event at school because people are talking about it or whispering it about you, or it just completely. So you haven't been to any school events since this happened? I've been to very few. But you have gone to some. Yes, for a while I didn't go to any, and then I started. When did you start going back? Klingler says, hang on a second, I don't think you're meaning to do this, but you've interrupted him a couple of times in the middle of an answer. Osborne, sometimes I'm trying to slow him down because he wants to do this, and I want to break it up chunks sometimes. This time I didn't mean actually, but witness, I've done the same. And then it looks like he just continues. So Nuland says, all right, I started distancing myself because, like I said, we're in an age of social media, and we all know how kids can be. Kids are bullies in school. My kids were constantly coming home crying or saying something. Well, this kid said this kid said that, even to the point where I messaged a couple of the parents. Okay, good for that. Finally, a yay. Yay. Let's tell the parents, your kids are being little buttholes. There's no reason to be doing this to the kids. My daughter goes to high school at Manchester, and in one of the music videos, one of the teachers is an actor in it. So she has to see that every day when she goes to school. I lost my train of thought. A teacher is an actor in a video. What? Oh my god, who's the actor? What video? So one of Afroman's videos, one of the teachers at this school is an actor in one of the Afroman videos that makes fun of the cops. I mean, are they talking about Rhonda? Or another teacher? So Osborne says a teacher, actor, and video. And then Nuland says, so all of that, I just thought, well, I go to these events, I go to these games, do whatever, like, you know, people are saying stuff about me and my kids are right there. So they're hearing it, they're knowing it. So I just stopped going. Like, I started making excuses. Well, I'm going to work late. Well, I don't feel good. I'm not going to go. And then finally, after so long, I started going back, and then probably within the last year, maybe less, I actually started trying to make it to every event again. And it's the same thing. You go in and you're there for 5 or 20 minutes and somebody wants to make a comment or anything. And it's like, even at your own house, which everybody wants to be, just like Mr. Foreman said he wanted to be secure in his own house. Are we comparing people heckling you at a public event? You can't be in peace inside your own house because you want to look at social media, and you're comparing that to the raid on Mr. Foreman's home. And for what it's worth, Brian Newland is the person who decided how to proceed with preparing the search warrant affidavit and going about executing it. So if anything's supposed to look suspicious about the execution of the search warrant and how it was prepared, that's all on Brian Newland's shoulders. And he's the one here in this deposition, like, I can't even be happy at home. All right, so now he's going to talk about outside. And I'm outside playing with my 2-year-old son, and people want to drive by and blare music and yell things like, you said you feel safe in your own house? Not necessarily feel safe, but just have that peace of mind or comfort. What do you mean exactly? Like I just explained. For instance, you know, outside mowing my yard and somebody drives by screaming at me. Can you even hear that? Or I'm outside playing basketball with my son and somebody wants to stop at the stop sign and turn on an Afroman song and start blaring it. And then start yelling, baby making Brian Newland. All of this and all of that. My kids have no idea. Do they not have an idea? And then it's like, you just ruined our time and we go in the house and that. So this has affected your kids? Yeah, it has. And so obviously your daughters in school have been affected. Yes. I would imagine that the 2-year-old thing hasn't been affected because he's rather young. Correct. So who's the other kid you're out playing basketball? My son Harper. He's 10. Is there anything else that would be part of the emotional distress? I don't know. There's so much. I can't even think. No. Is it all in the same vein as what we've been talking about? Yeah. Now, this may sound stupid, but you've also asked about humiliation. Would that be the same stuff we've already talked about? Yeah. Our complaint has asked for damages in excess of $25,000 for that humiliation. Can you explain how that number was developed? I can't. If I was to ask you to help me learn to calculate it, could you do it today? No, because you can't put a price on something that's never going to go back. Like, this stuff is out there for the world to see forever. This opinion, their opinion of me is going to last forever. And so would that be the same for the emotional distress and the harm to reputation? Yeah. This may sound stupid, but when you were interviewing at the new police department, did they ask you about this? Yes, they did. And what did they say? Just asked, you know, where it was, what was going on with it, and then asked about the civil suit and what was going on with that. And at the time, I told them that I didn't really know, because I didn't know at the time. There was nothing, no deposition scheduled. It was just kind of in the process of, you know, we left it at that. But even the people I work with now, you know, it was meant as a joke, but there's an unwritten rule at the current department that if you leave your desktop logged in and somebody changed your background, it's got to stay that way. So guess who my background is on my laptop? It's your client. How are you going to blame Afroman for that? So I take it your coworkers thought that was a joke on you. Yeah. Did you explain to them that you're not taking it as a joke? Yes, I did. Did you ever change your computer open so they could change it back? No, I mean my computer's been left open, but nobody's going to change it back. Why not if you told them how you feel about it? It's just the way cops are. So cops can do this. Your coworkers, they're not just cops that can do this. They're your coworker cops. They can do this. It's a joke. It's just the way we are. And even though they're doing it, somehow it's Afroman's fault. So David Osborne says, so they had no ill will when they did that? Not to the best of my knowledge, no. Do you plan on calling anyone other than other parties to this case as a witness to trial? I do have people that I would like to call, but I would like to consult with my attorney prior to, though. Can you give me their names, please? The mothers of my daughters that confided in them, the school employees, the other parents that I've had to message. When you say school employees, which school? Manchester High School. So you have the mom of your daughters. Okay. You mean the mother of your children? My daughters are with a separate woman that, and they've confided in their mother about how it bothers them and what they've been told and said. So some of the damages you're seeking in reference to the children? My entire family. When you say entire family, who all is that? Me and my children. So also Harper? No. The 10-year-old? He's asked me about it a couple times, but he doesn't understand. He's actually a fan. What do you mean? He's a fan of your client. He likes the song? He doesn't like the songs. He likes the rhythm, the beat. I don't know. It's coming from inside the house. And then says he just doesn't understand what's going on. So when you say your family, you're just referring to the two daughters? Yeah, because I would imagine the 2-year-old can't be on it. Right. And what's the mother's name of those two daughters? Carly Patterson? And you talked about school employees. How many employees at Manchester? 3. Aaron Lockhart, Tim Davis, and I can't remember it's not actually a school employee. Her husband is on the school board, but I've had to have private conversations with him about it. So it doesn't seem like this is Rhonda Grooms. So these are the people that he said that were apparently actors in one of Afroman's music videos. Like, what are we doing? So what would Aaron Lockhart testify to? I mean, he's familiar with everything. I mean, he's the principal, I believe now. He knows the teacher that performs in the music videos that they have to see every single day. Has he taken any steps to tell the teachers not to do that? There was supposed to be some conversation about it. I don't know what, if any. I don't know that there was. If there was, what it was. You never followed up with Aaron? No. What would Tim Davis testify to? Maybe the same thing. Maybe the same thing or the same thing. Most likely the exact same thing. And who's the husband of the person on the school board? I've lost my train of thought. I cannot think of it either. But he's on the school board, and their son was posting all kinds of comments and saying stuff at school, and I can get that to my attorney and he can give it to you. So you're alleging then that this child that was posting this stuff was doing it at the direction of Joseph Foreman? No, absolutely not. That's just another example of unnecessary, I don't want to say bullying, but like the entire situation like goes towards that emotional damage that you call it, or I don't know. So in relation to the emotional distress, have you seen a doctor in relation to that? No, I haven't. A counselor? No. Any healthcare professional of any type? No, I haven't. Have you had any change in medication due to this? No. Have you ever talked to a family doctor about it? No. How many work days have you missed due to this? I think when it was the worst, I maybe called off 1 or 2 days. When you say the worst, when was that? Whenever these videos were being released about me being a thief and a pedophile, and there was something new every day. There was a couple of days where I just didn't go to work. Did you get paid for those days? Yes. So you used vacation time? Yes. Was that before or after you left the sheriff's office? That was before. Did you receive any death threats? Not directly, no. When you say not directly, what do you mean? I know that I did see a few on the sheriff's office page where there were messages saying that they were going to kill us or we all deserve to die, but I never received anything to me directly. You mentioned the Facebook page for the sheriff's office. Facebook tracks who Mr. Klingler, excuse me, your videographer needs to... I just need to swap the audio. Apologize very sincerely. Oh, they're going to make sure that they don't lose the audio while they're video recording. How about that? So they fix that. They come back on the record. So the Facebook page for the Adams County Sheriff's Office had death threats on it? Yes. Was any action taken to prosecute those people? I know that there was copies obtained of the messages. There was a bunch of phone calls that were obtained. The last that I knew, the deputy chief at the time, Bobby Ray Bush, was in conversation with the prosecutor's office. Where that went, I have no idea. Is Bob Ray Bush still with the office? No. Did he leave shortly after he lost the election? I believe so. Since then, you have never gotten any more information or followed up? No. So to the best of your knowledge, no one has been charged for making a death threat against the police officer. Correct. Is making a threat against a police officer a crime? Yes. What crime is it? Aggravated menacing. What exactly is ag menacing? Causing someone to believe or develop a reason to believe that you'll cause them serious physical harm. So basically making a person afraid that they're going to get hurt. Correct. Have you ever been threatened before in the line of duty? Yes. When was that? I've been threatened more than once. I've had somebody try to come burn down my house. I don't recall exactly when. Have you ever had a person use derogatory names at you as an officer before this? Yes, just not a nationwide scale. What do you mean? Where everybody in the nation is sharing it and viewing it on the news and TMZ and not on this large of a scale. Maybe somebody calls you a bitch or, some quip because they're going to jail or they're drunk and getting arrested. Never to this extent. Do you care what the people of Colorado think of you? Shout out to Adams County Sheriff's Office in Colorado. I don't. Do you care what people think of you in general? I do when it's blatant lies, and especially when it's something as serious as being a pedophile, when I have children, or a thief when I'm a cop. Yeah, I do take that very seriously. Would you say everything in the search was done correctly? Yes. I don't see that there was anything done wrong, or nothing could have been done better? Absolutely, I think could have been more organized and done better. It doesn't justify the fact that all of these videos and songs and everything else that was done to myself or any of these other deputies were justified. And this is the heart of it. This commentary is stemming about what he did in the course of his work. And he's saying it could have done better. So should somebody not be able to comment on that? What kind of resolution would you like to see to this case? I don't even know what resolution there can be reached because nothing can be undone. Like I said, those videos are out here in the world forever. Like, everybody already develops their opinion. Opinion! He says opinion! I have no ill feelings towards your client at all. But I think there has to be some kind of accountability. There should be something. What that is, I have no idea. Or if there can even be a resolution reached. Okay, one of your claims is for unreasonable publicity given to private life. What exactly part of your private life is being unreasonably publicized? I don't necessarily know if I even understand how to answer that, but this all has brought negative publicity to my private life and my public life. I can't even explain it, but these posts and videos and everything speak for themselves as why everything is unnecessary or unwanted publicity to your private life. So there's nothing private in your life that's been published. I guess not, no. Then Mr. Osborne says, if I can have a moment with my client, please. They come back on the record. Brian, I just want to clear up something. So when Mike Estep testified, he testified that someone told him to leave evidence there. Who was in charge of determining what was evidence or what wasn't? It could have been me or any other supervisors. What other supervisors? I can't speak to what was told to him, but I know for a fact I didn't tell anybody to leave evidence there. Well, people were looking through CDs. Were any of those going to be taken? No. Okay, so if Mike said there was a decision to leave those there, that would have been, who made that? That would have been who that made that. He would have double-checked with me, I would like to think, but there wouldn't have been reason. If there was something that was blatantly evident, I would have never told him to leave it there. Why was the security system left there? So the security system was it was agreed that we were going to seize the security system. While there and having a conversation with Mr. Foreman's wife, she told us that it was like he was viewing it at the time. It was all cloud-based and everything was stored like on a program. So at that time, the camera, the actual physical device that was there, had already been removed, and I felt like if it was cloud-based, there was no reason for us to take it. If the rationale behind the security footage is the hostage isn't there, but this person, we do believe that they are trafficking human individuals, they are keeping somebody or multiple persons without their will, and this video camera could show us what we can't see here and present right now while we're doing the search. How would you feel if this was genuinely a human trafficking situation, if it was credible, and they don't actually proceed to take this information? They just disconnected to a point where Afroman, who's not home, can no longer see it happening through his own surveillance footage. They don't actually take it to investigate it further. If this was human trafficking, do you think this person would go through great lengths to try to make sure whatever was available on cloud? And you just take their word. It's not like, oh, it's on a cloud, we could subpoena it. Like, what if that was a lie and it was only on the hardware? Or what if he was storing backup on something that you'd have to actually be able to access, and if he doesn't volunteer that to you, there's no way for you to find some like obvious public company like Google or Apple or a security-based cloud storage system that you could go subpoena. You just say, never mind, we're just going to leave it there while they know that we're already looking for it, and hope that on a good faith basis that not only is it actually being recorded somewhere and still available to retrieve, but that they'll tell us how we can get a copy of that. Doesn't really look good if this had been an actual investigation into a credible claim of trafficking or kidnapping. Because the trafficking was the drug trafficking, but there was like this back and forth where sometimes it seems like the CI was saying it was just one woman that was in the dungeon, but then there were multiple women that were held in the dungeon. So who knows? So, next question. Did you ever do a search warrant for the cloud? No, we did not. So, other than the search of Mr. Foreman's residence, speaking with the confidential informant, what other work did you do on this investigation? That was really it. Like I said, almost immediately the prosecutor's office, or not long after the prosecutor's office made the decision that we weren't going to do anything, and everything had started being posted and said, and everything that we just that was the end of it, it felt like. And then Osborne says, no further questions at this time. And then McElroy, so remember this is the attorney, one of the attorneys for the defendants, or for the police officers, for the countersuit. So I do have some questions. And then we get direct from McElroy. Okay, so at the time you conducted the second interview with the confidential informant, did you have any reason not to believe her? No. All right. So what facts or information made the confidential informant believable? Like I said, I had been in the house previously, so I knew that she was accurate when she described the parts of the house that I had seen. I knew that she had an intimate relationship, or that she'd been an employee of Mr. Foreman and had an intimate relationship with him for quite some time prior. So I had no reason to believe that she was being dishonest. And what facts or information do you have about that relationship with that confidential informant? Do you have about the relationship that the confidential informant had with Mr. Foreman? So she'd indicated that that she had initially started out as an employee. The two began an intimate relationship. She had traveled with him to some of his shows and also traveled back with him. There was a separate investigation, not tied to this, where there were some sexually explicit videos that was released to her children somehow, and those obtained, those were of Mr. Foreman and the confidential informant. Those videos were of the confidential informant and Mr. Foreman? Correct. And those videos were sent to her children? They were sent to her children, her husband, and I believe maybe some other family members. So I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to kind of jump around because I'm just kind of clearing up here. Was the probable cause in your affidavit warrant based on drugs that may have been found at Mr. Foreman's residence as described by the confidential informant? Correct. Okay, and drugs were found at Mr. Foreman's residence? Correct. Okay, just not in the amounts alleged by the confidential informant? Correct. Okay, and then in regards to the miscount of the cash of Mr. Foreman, the miscount Was the miscount a result of some intentional act on your part? No. Okay. Did you intend to miscount Mr. Foreman's money? No. Did you have any motive or intent at all when it came to the recount of Mr. Foreman's cash? No. Okay, and I think that's all I have. Thanks. So remember, for the countersuit there, they're trying to defend, Afroman was trying to go in his counterclaim to recover damages for whatever happened during this raid. So Klingler comes in. I've got a few. Detective Nuland, these sexually explicit videos that you just referred to, have you seen it or them? Yes. Are there more than one? I believe there was 2 videos. And so you left this whole detail out. You were involved in this. Was it a prior point in time? Or was she showing you these things that day? So, have you seen it or them? He says yes. Are there more than one? I believe there was 2 videos. And was there anything in those videos, first of all? Had you seen these videos before? Before your first interview of the confidential informant in this case? Yes. Was there anything in those videos that helped you confirm the reliability or make an assessment of the reliability of any of the confidential informant statements? Yes. So obviously the content of the video confirmed that they were in an intimate relationship, like she explained. The act was performed in the video. I'm trying to think of how to word this. Kind of went along with how she explained, like, I don't want to misquote because I don't recall exactly what was said, but kind of went along with the activity that she explained went on at the residence. So was anybody in is this the peeing on the head video? Let's take a look at, which apparently he published online, and it was like an actress depicting it. Let's take a look at, back at the Exhibit 8, if you still have that in front of you, and that's the search warrant. And take a look at your affidavit attached to the search warrant as part of Exhibit 8, and look at the latter part of paragraph 2. All right. Is there anything in that would refreshes your recollection as to what you're talking about? Bullet 2, like the bottom part, the bottom paragraph? Osborne says he's referring to the last sentence of paragraph 1, number 2. Okay, yes, I see that now. Yeah, thank you. So paragraph 1 of number 2 of paragraph 2. The first section of what's been marked as section 2. Yeah, correct. I see the last part. And just for clarity of the record, it says, the last sentence of that says, confidential informant number 1 further stated Afroman has a basement, referred to as the dungeon, in which he, being Afroman, Joseph Foreman, keeps women locked up, forcing them to urinate and defecate in a bucket as punishment for upsetting or disobeying him. First of all, it's going to be this P video. First of all, let me ask you, is that part of your affidavit based on what the confidential informant told you? Yes. And is there anything about that information that relates in any way to the videos we've been talking about? Well, the video depicts Mr. Foreman urinating on the confidential informant. Okay. And your testimony earlier, I think, was that you learned that somebody had sent this video to the confidential informant's children. Correct. And her husband? Correct. Did Angela, I guess that's Mr. Foreman's former wife? Correct. So Angela sends this video. She finds this video and she sends it over to them. That might explain why Tasha is no longer allowed at the house. She gets cut off. She made it seem like it was her choice and that it was posted online in the search warrant. It seems like Brian Newland seems to know there's a different context here, but in the warrant it was represented that he found it credible to represent to the court that the confidential informant said, well, I stopped going over there because he posted a video depicting this of me. So on the night of the search, did she make any statements to you that tended to verify or substantiate any of the information the confidential informant had given you? She did make a statement about she tries not to see what goes on over there because all of the women coming in and out. And I believe that she said that was the reason she had him build a wall between the 2 residences. Do you have any information about the Adams County Sheriff's Office website being taken down for a while because of all the posts? I believe that it was actually deactivated for a while because of all the posts. Do you have any information about the value of that website in investigations or getting information on crimes? It was, during my time at the sheriff's office, it was always used as a tool to try to identify suspects. They're catched on camera to inform the public of traffic closures, road closures. As previously stated, it was used to post pictures of runaway juveniles or missing juveniles. It was always a tool that was consistently used. And that was taken down for at least a while because of all the negative posts. That was the sole reason why, yes. I believe you testified that you were in the driveway for a period of time talking to Angela, Mr. Foreman's former wife, on the night of the search. Yes. And you were called out there by Lisa Phillips? Yes. And Angela was in a car? Yes. With 1 or 2 children? I don't recall if it was 1 or 2 children. I know there was definitely a child in the back. And you and Lisa Phillips advised Angela to take her kids home, and if she wanted to come back and go into the house, correct. Did you threaten to shoot Afroman in the presence of the child? No. Did anyone threaten to shoot Afroman in front of the child? Not in my presence. Did anyone ever threaten to shoot Afroman in any way at any time during that investigation? Not to my knowledge. Any statements that he would have posted on the internet to that effect would have been lies? Yes. When you were counting the money that night on your body cam, it was on? Yes. You knew it was on? Yes. The microphone was on? Yes. You knew it was on? Yes. If you had wanted to steal money during that count, could you have found some excuse for turning your body cam off? Yes. Did you observe the breach of the 2 doors that we've talked about in these depositions? Yes. In your professional opinion, after all of the entries and breaches that you've been involved in, was any unnecessary damage done? No. Were decisions and steps in fact taken to minimize any damage? Yes. Is that the reason the glass door wasn't shattered? Yes. Before this incident happened, and all of the videos you posted, as you've been testifying to, before it happened, did you have any plans to leave the Adams County Sheriff's Office? No, I was going to spend my career here. Mr. Klingler, those are all my questions. Thanks. Osborne, I just want to ask a couple follow-up questions about this video. So we have recross. Was this video detailed in the search warrant sexual in nature? That video was not detailed in the search warrant. The video of him urinating on the CI? No, that was not part of the search warrant. Yes, it was. So he hasn't looked. He says, would you mind flipping to page 2 and looking at paragraph 2, the last sentence, or the first paragraph in paragraph 2? Right. I'm sorry. Flip to page 3. Number 2, it says, confidential informant number 1 further stated, and Mr. Klingler read the rest of it. That refers to a video that you saw previously, correct? No. Would you like me to explain? No. No further questions. And then Klingler doesn't have follow-up on that either. So, well, there we go. There we go. Yeah, Lukesters is not acquiring the security footage proves that this raid had nothing to do with trafficking, or at least that they weren't concerned. They weren't credibly concerned with it going that way. Yeah, Angela said she had him build a fence between their house. Yeah, the wall makes it seem like the houses were like joined and then they had to build a division within the building, within the structure itself. Oh, man. Let's see. Yeah, Rutrose says, to be fair, I'm shocked Afroman was unbothered for as long as he was. I just don't understand why any of these cops or Roy Gabbert thought this was a good idea. I mean, maybe they looked at the rest of the community and they figured, you know, they're going to want us to get all this bad stuff out of the neighborhood and wouldn't look at it beyond what they represented it to be. And that certainly backfired. Certainly backfired. Let's see. Also, major shout out here. Good to see Kay Schmidt in the building. Hope you're doing good, Kay Schmidt. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Super nice of you. Thank you, thank you. And yeah, guys, that wraps up. That's all the depositions I had seen on the docket. Someone had asked, like, where were these found? So these were filed, I believe they were filed in December-ish of 2025. Probably took the court reporter some time to get the transcripts turned over. But towards the end of 2025, these actually took place in August of 2025. They were filed on the docket. So that's where these depositions came from. There's a folder, it's like case resources in the description. And it has the depositions. It links to this. So there's the probable cause affidavit, the depositions, and then some other relevant filings that we looked at on stream. It's not the whole docket. And I believe this is also the, let me double check. This is the video of Brian Newland. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, so YouTube flagged this so quickly when we played it the other day. But the video that was part of one of the captions that was used in court, they didn't play this video in court, but they pulled up the social post and the still frame was showing. But it's him lip syncing to Lose Yourself by Eminem. And it's the post where Afroman's saying, like, you stole my money because you're a failed rapper. Like, the context there is you couldn't make it as a rapper, want to be Eminem, so you have your eyes on me, you envy me, you stole my money. Like, the context to me is kind of important. But that's in there as well if you want to go check that out. It's still up on Afroman's Instagram, but you got to go back all the way to like 2023. There's a lot of posts there. So, hey, Ms. Kells, good to see you. So there we go. Bowlegs, good to see you. Thanks for the kind words. Guys, later at 5 p.m., going to be on the panel show with Judy from AA Legal Focus and Loophole Lawyer. That's going to be a good time. Let's see. I've got a meeting at 2 in 15 minutes here that I've got to get ready for. I see MG Law in the building. Good to see you. Good to see you. EJF says Afroman's just helping to economically support the local economy. Yeah, Judge Droopy is as corrupt as these so-called law enforcement officers. And you know what? Not only do I think the public has the right to comment on it, kids saying mean things to kids, I think that's a different issue of socialization. If we want kids to think, hey, it's not nice to say these sort of things. And you speak to your kids, you have those conversations with your kids. My mom never had it when we were rude to people. She didn't like to hear us cursing. She would do the thing that a lot of parents, I think, did. You curse in another language and you act like your kid's not going to know that it's a curse word, right? That's my mom tried to box us around. But that's a totally different realm of why we would be having conversations with our kids and peers when something bothers us. Hey, maybe you shouldn't just be an asshole for the sake of it. It's a totally separate discussion than whether or not somebody has the right to comment on a public officer, whether or not somebody has the right to comment on something that happened to them, whether or not somebody has the right to use artistic expression when everything that they do is always satirical. To say something that, yeah, maybe if I went and called a private citizen, accused them of something that would be defamation per se, something that would be, they're an unethical attorney, they scheme money from their clients. If I go and accuse an attorney of stealing money from their clients, what do I have to back that up? If I don't have a real story, a personal experience, good basis, I'm not known for the hyperbole, I'd probably have to fight a fight there if somebody wanted to litigate against me. But to comment against a public official, and then to be sued by 7 police officers who don't want you commenting on things that, quite frankly, either stem back from the raid or because you've continued litigation against this individual, other people have gone to that individual that you're suing and said, here's more on this person. Here's my experience with them. And then they start incorporating those things in their commentary and their music videos and all of that. It all, to me, falls under the realm of first speech. I think the jury agrees with that. I'm hopeful to have some insight to share from a juror. We're doing it in writing, but they have verified. They sent over their juror badge, their payment for the days of the trial with the exact dates and the case name, and sent over something else, the release. So they sent over 3 things that verify they were a juror. So we're going back and forth in writing. They want to remain anonymous. But I really want to just get some insight on, did the jury realize that this was bigger than just this one case? So keep your radar open for that. See if you see something pop up in the next few days with that. I'd love to share their insight if they're so willing to share. Panel tonight at 5. Tomorrow, again, probably going to take a look at it's going to be the 11th Circuit oral arguments because the Supreme Court unanimously agreed, hey, remand this back down to the 11th Circuit. So tomorrow we're going to see the Martin v. United States. That's the feds that raided the wrong house. They didn't check the house number before they raided it. And the fight over whether or not the family, the victims, can sue the government for damages that were incurred in this raid. So I think it's right on line with what we're talking about here with Afroman. Although, of course, we're dealing with federal jurisdiction and the Federal Tort Claims Act. So a little bit of a different legal framework and context, but still the idea, somebody raids your house, you don't deserve that raid. Do you have any recourse for damages? Do you have any recourse? So that'll be tomorrow, I think. If not, maybe the day after. You guys all have a good one. Until then, hope to see you at 5 over at AA Legal Focus's channel. That's linked in the description and pinned at the chat. And hopefully no more mess out of this Afroman trial. Let's let that man live. Let's let him get back to touring. Leave his house alone. And, hopefully the kids stop getting bullied at school. But, sometimes you have to be a parent and go to the school and say, hey, I'm worried that this is happening at school under your supervision with my child. What can you guys do about that? Or, hey, if all of these social media apps are affecting your health, like, let's down the screen time. Let's get away from the screen time today. There's things that we can do to be proactive, to find peace in our lives that wouldn't mean we're suing somebody for exercising their First Amendment. So there we go, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.